you. Come on in. Welcome to the Scum Bar. Welcome, Scumbar Podcast Marvel Movie Marathon, where we go through the 22 films in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, starting with Iron Man donning his first suit and ending with Thanos and the Infinity Gauntlet. We're going to talk Iron Man, Captain America, David Hasselhoff, and everything in between. I am your host, Captain Mattbrush, and with me today is Drax himself.
My nipples are sensitive.
What is Gamora?
I'll give you one better. Why is Gamora?
Why is Gamora?
Hi there, I'm Anth0z. How's
Hi.
it going?
Hi, Anth0z. How are you doing? It's fun to have you here on the Scumbar Podcast.
Aw, thanks.
You know, every other host we've ever had has just been horrible, but you are a great
So I've heard.
co-host.
I've heard the worst things about every other single episode the Scumbar Podcast has produced. So I'm here to put the record straight that from this moment on, this podcast is going to be so much better. Because
Only great
I'm
episodes.
A part of it. Yes.
Yeah.
Only great ones.
I'd like to warn everyone listening to this podcast. This podcast is actually going to spoil the entire Marvel Cinematic Universe. So if you do not want spoilers, then run away. Run far away right now.
Far. And never come back.
And never. You know what? We said the same joke last time, too.
Did we really? Oh,
Yeah.
oops.
Before I even say it, I'm going to cut myself off. If you enjoy this podcast, though, please be sure to leave us a like, a subscribe, a comment, or anything else. Really, just anything.
I just want to mention, okay, so right now, I think we've mentioned in previous episodes, even though this is my true first episode ever being on this podcast, apparently, that we always, for the Marvel ones, we have the movie playing in the background. And so right now, for the beginning of Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, there's an opening sequence where like Groot is dancing with the music going on.
Yeah.
And actually, that seemed really appropriate while you were doing that warning. Like the whole
yeah.
spoiler kind of thing. Like, I like this. This is a good start for this episode.
Yeah. Solid beginning. I think so, too.
Yeah.
We
Except the
just
audience
need the
doesn't
music
hear.
in the background. Jun, 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 jun,
Ching,
jun,
ching,
jun,
ching,
jun,
ching,
jun.
ching. I like it.
I actually don't remember the song. I just remember that little guitar riff at the beginning. I don't remember what the song actually is.
Me too. I just remember, hey, and then Groot dancing, and that's pretty much it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyways, whatever. We're into Guardians of the Galaxy territory, so it's going to be music from here on out.
Yes.
That's me. This week for our Marvel Movie Marathon, we're going to be talking about 2017's Guardians of the Galaxy 2?
Volume 2.
Volume 2, thank you.
2.
This movie's going to be starring Chris Pratt, Zoe Saldana, Vin Diesel, Bradley Cooper, Dave Bautista, Michael Rooker, and Kurt Russell. And there's even more, but that's all I wrote down. This movie was directed by James Gunn.
James Gunn, and is it his brother Sean Gunn?
Yeah, Sean
in it,
Gunn's
right?
in it, yeah.
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
He was in the first one as well. But Anth0z, without further ado, why don't you give our viewers a brief synopsis of the film?
After stealing some extremely valuable batteries from a snooty high priestess,
After stealing.
the Guardians crash on a planet where they meet Ego, a man who claims to be Quill's father. They go with Ego to his home planet, where he tells them that he is a god, meaning Quill is too. Although Ego's planet seems like a paradise to Quill, Gamora is uneasy, and when she goes to investigate, she discovers Ego's greatest secret.
Dun, dun, dun.
Dun, dun.
Nice. Well done.
Thanks.
Anth0z, before we break this movie down to 3 acts like we always do on this podcast, I like to do a little thing, a fun little thing, where I talk about what I thought it was like when I saw it in theaters.
Cool.
Now, this movie is interesting to me because I saw it in theaters on my own. I was on a
one of
work
those.
trip. I was on a work trip and I had nothing to do, so Guardians was out in theaters, so I decided to go see it in the theaters. And I spent my money on it. I had a little stimmy from work, so I thought I'd use that for going to see this movie. So
Where did you usually go?
What's
It's like a small town place, right?
Yeah, it was in it was in Salt Lake City at the time, but I was working in a small town outside of Salt Lake City. But I went to the theater in Salt Lake City there, and I was watching Guardians, and I saw it twice. So on like a Tuesday and a Thursday. So I went like almost back to back. and I went and spent like all the money. I got like the large everything, and I bought it.
Wow.
Like I saw it in 3D, and I sat like in the middle of the theater. There was like no one there. It was amazing.
That sounds like a really fun Tuesday and Thursday.
It was so good. So I have a little bit of a bias. I really enjoyed the theater experience of this movie, so that made me really enjoy the movie. And as we get through this episode, you're going to see that my thoughts have changed on this movie now, on the rewatch here.
Okay.
But yeah, I really enjoyed my theater experience because I was very comfortable and I was really into it there. And so that's my theater experience. Do you remember watching this in theaters?
A little bit. I do remember having a completely different notion as well. Because like this time watching it, I actually liked it way more than I remember.
Okay.
I think coming out of the theater the first time, I only watched it one time in theaters, but when I did, I remember liking it progressively less as the movie went on.
Right.
So my joy from the beginning was like pretty high up, I think, because I really loved that opening. And then as the movie kind of progressed, I think I was just kind of feeling confused at some points, or feeling like it was slowly becoming the Guardians movie that I didn't originally fall in love with, or that I didn't originally like. But watching it again, I don't know why, but for some reason I just enjoyed it so much more than I remember. So I'm happy about that, at the least. Like, it was fun to watch for sure.
Definitely. Well, I'm glad you felt that way because I knew I really enjoyed it watching in theaters, and I thought it was a lot of fun then.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to get into this with these 3 acts, but I just want to preface this by saying, like, I'm probably going to speak a little negatively about this, but please understand that I do enjoy this movie.
Please understand.
Please, you must understand this, Mr. Stark. But no, I do really enjoy this movie, but it just felt different for me watching it this time. There's so many things I feel that like should be nitpicked, but not just for the sake of nitpicking, but like should almost be nitpicked because we're just coming across them in a time when I didn't think we would have, when we're hitting all these really good Marvel movies. So we'll get there.
Okay.
But yeah, no, I do really enjoy this movie too. Okay, so let's move into Act 1.
All right.
Oh, I didn't name my acts. Oh, my gosh.
Mattbrush.
I know.
Well, I can do what I usually do at a restaurant when other people haven't finished picking what they want to order. I can go first and talk really slowly, giving you time to think of a title for yourself.
I'll start thinking as soon as you're done the sentence.
Already realized I'm giving you time right now.
Oh!
So
okay.
you
got it.
should already...
I'll improvise all my titles.
Thinking of one. Okay, fine then.
You go ahead.
My Act 1 is called All of the Things. And
all of the things.
I guess I might as well explain. And it's because I found that the first act, it just seems like they threw out all the comedy. They threw out kind of like all of the, just kind of like, well, not like all the big crazy moments, but there were. Why did I write trees? Were there a lot of trees?
Well, there's the tree scene. There's a forest scene.
I guess when they crash, there's a lot of trees, and then there's a whole bunch of ships. There's a lot of ships everywhere.
They
just
break everything.
A lot of I guess so. It's just a lot of everything going on. I also feel like a lot of the lines that they had, like they really just wanted to like, okay, deliver this line, like punch on here, punch on here, punch on here, punch on here, and kind of get it out of the way. So that's my first act.
I'd agree with that. I'll name mine The Breaking of the Guardians.
Breaking of the Guardians. Okay.
Yeah, a reference to Lord of the Rings there. Hey, oh, this guy is quick on his feet. All right, so let's move into it. We got a little scene here. I will play Gamora, and you play Mr. Quill.
Is that your Gamora voice?
Gamora! I am Gamora!
I'm Peter.
Okay. All right, here we go. What was that story you told me about? Zardu Hasselfrau?
Who?
He owned a magic boat.
David Hasselhoff?
Right.
Not a magic boat, a talking car.
Why did he talk again?
To help him fight crime, and to be supportive. What a funny just icon to think of.
I know, David Hasselhoff out of nowhere. It's just it gets like referenced like 4 times.
Yeah, quite a bit. And then I totally forgot that he comes up later on in the movie, and I was thinking like, does he get royalties for all this? But
he must.
Maybe.
He's got it. All right, so we're gonna start off the movie here. We got a little scene with Meredith and Ego. So Meredith being Quill's mom. We get a nice flashback. Similar to the first movie, we get a flashback showing Quill's mom and kind of some circumstances between him and his father. In the first movie, she talks about how his father was some kind of person of the light, came down from the sky. And now in this one, we get to see her relationship with him. And yeah, he does seem like he's some kind of spaceman.
He's pretty light.
Yeah, he's pretty light, pretty cool. That song in the background that she's singing at that moment is the same song that he references later to talk to Peter, which is funny because that song also works as an allegory to everything that he has in life. He's a man.
What song was that like?
It's the sailors say Brandy, she's a fine girl.
Right. Okay.
That song is supposed to reference what Ego is thinking. He's called by the sea no matter what. So even though he's got this Brandy woman that he loves, he's called by the sea, his purpose, right? And that's what he's trying to instill into Peter later on in the movie. So they're singing it here at the very beginning of the movie, and it's funny because it's supposed to be heartwarming and all cutesy and all that, but little does she know that that same kind of theme is actually the reason why he ends up having to...
It's her own undoing.
Yeah, exactly. We also get a reference to the plant that he is planting into the ground here at the very beginning of the movie. So
the little bud.
Little bud.
Which I feel like shouldn't she have kind of had a more of a bigger reaction to seeing something like that did not look at all like it was from that planet? And
I know it was very I just assume maybe she's already seen it or knows about it all, right? But I don't know.
She's just too in love.
Yeah. Also, we get to see Kurt Russell with the CGI effect to be quite young again. It actually looks pretty good.
That one looks pretty good too. Yeah, it's much better than who else have we seen that doesn't really.
Well, there's Hank Pym, there's Tony Stark, and him so far. Kurt Russell. I think that's all we've seen. Tony's
was kind of odd. Like it almost seemed like it was meant to not look real.
Yeah.
Because he was he looked completely CGI, but with the Hank Pym, it looked like he was like de-aged, but it's still the current actor. You know what I mean?
I actually think the Hank Pym one was my favorite. I think that one looked the best.
Yeah, it was really
but this Kurt Russell one's not bad either. Like you could almost make a whole movie with this.
Yeah, I think it's well done. I guess technology over time, it's kind of changed and maybe increase their budget over time as well. Who knows? Yeah.
Well, we skip ahead in time now in the movie. We're skipping all of Peter's life pretty much to where he is now, as the fighting the giant obelisk monster thing, I guess.
Something like that, yeah.
Trying to protect the Harbulary batteries.
Yeah, the Harbulary batteries, that's right.
Harbulary batteries.
That's not at all what I said. Yeah.
That's not at all.
Something like that, yeah.
There is some jokes here in the movie that I found really funny that now I find somehow miss. I don't know why, but they feel like they miss a little bit. And the Harbulary batteries is hilarious when he first says it, but when he references it later, it feels like a little bit of a strain.
I guess because it's not necessary to pull.
They don't have to pull back to that
right?
joke.
Like we don't.
That joke is done and over. It doesn't need to be done anymore.
Exactly. Yeah.
But I like this battle, like you mentioned earlier. This is a really fun fight scene and good intro credits. This is really well done. They introduce the Guardians really quickly, and if you don't know who they are, you now know who they are.
Yeah. So what I really, really like about this scene is that you don't actually have to watch. Okay. So I kind of find it's not like a cliche thing, but you'll often find movies where there's some sort of really big fight or climactic thing kind of happening right from the get-go, and that's just to draw you in, right? So I think with the Winter Soldier, there was the thing with the pirates. That's kind of it was more of a covert thing, but it's in a way somewhat intense by the time he makes his way to what was his name? Batroc, I think, played by George St. Pierre. Batroc.
I don't remember. It's already gone for me now.
That's okay. Yeah. But anyway, so this, I guess, to go with that same kind of formula, bringing people in right from the get-go, hey, let's throw in something really big and fun. Mm-hmm. But I like how they did that while at the same time not even focusing on that fact, because really when we see those kind of things in movies, at least in my experience, they're normally inconsequential. They're not necessarily important for the sake of the rest of the movie and whatever plot is going to happen. They might have some sort of little connection here and there, or maybe some sort of dialogue happens to occur during those moments, but they could have occurred during any other time. Anyway, so for this one, in this scene, we're just watching Groot dance. We're just watching him have fun. In the meantime, the rest of the Guardians are just kind of going in and out of screen, in and out of focus. And that's enough time for us to kind of remember oh yeah, that's what their characters are like, and that's all we need. Yeah, so I don't really know if they intended it to be that way, that they're oh hey, we're gonna have this really giant cool monster fight, but it's gonna be totally in the background and not focused on, because it doesn't matter. I don't think they really intended it that way, but to me it comes across that way, and I like it if that is the fact.
I think it's trying to do a lot of things, and it's very calculated, but it works. And I find a lot of this movie is actually quite calculated, almost like they did it in a lab or something. But one really important thing they're trying to do in this intro scene is show who everyone is on the team and show how the team works and their dynamics.
Yeah.
So when Drax jumps inside the Beast, he is trying to do something for the team. But then you understand that Gamora and Peter are the ones that know that what he's doing is not going to help at all, right?
Yeah.
So then you understand that they're kind of the brains behind the operation. Drax is more the muscle. Groot's just dancing around having a good time. And then Rocket is always using his guns. So really quickly you understand who they are and what they do in their team, respectively. You even have Peter who's pointing out the weakness on the monster's neck, and Gamora who's the one who she tries to shoot it, runs out of batteries, pulls out a sword, so improvises and then makes it work. So you now, by the end, when the creature is destroyed, you already know their place in this team. And it's really, really well done, very well calculated, and it's fun. And I think it's why it works so well.
It starts off really well too when Quill, like I think he's talking about like what weapons like everybody has to get into the fight, and then he's talking
is
about
that a rifle?
Yeah, like you're usually the swords person. I'm the gun person.
I just thought that you use swords and I was the guy who used the guns.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's funny that like at the beginning of the movie he's kind of, it's almost like they're using that point. It's like divisive for him to establish what those characters are, but at the same time it's not working because that's not actually happening.
Yeah,
so
but she does switch to a sword anyway, so it's kind of funny.
Exactly. In the end she does, so it's kind of funny that
So I think almost immediately after we move out of that scene, this movie starts to go a little bit off the rails. I don't really like the Sovereign people or Aisha all that much. And it's not because of what they are. Why is the Sovereign?
Why are they?
It's just like their race and their planet and all that kind of stuff is totally fine. It's just the way they're portrayed is way too casual for me to get into it. I understand it's for comedic effect that they're very casual, but it's too much. I don't know why. Her name being Aisha and them being like very like almost millennials. I see them as like a teenage kind of personality.
Yeah, because they all get into like really playing games in a way, right? Like
it's very very fake, right? Their whole society is about like being super beautiful and like the best that they can be. Like they manufacture their own babies
everybody's
to be
like
perfect.
Handcrafted. Particularly, exactly.
So I understand that that's kind of why they're playing them off with that kind of personality, but for some reason it falls flat. It almost feels like they're not taking it seriously, and I don't know why, but it makes it. I don't know. I'm indifferent. Sometimes it's funny, and other times it's like a little far fetched. I think.
I agree. I tend to not really like the interactions with them, and I find, something about their. I guess it is the portrayal. Just like, what is it that they're supposed to be, in terms of like a culture? Yeah, like why are they? So I don't know. I definitely agree with you on that. I would have been fine if we had a lot less of them going on, but I guess we had to have enough of it. Yeah, I think we had more of them established than we needed to see what happens later on. Like they have a little bit more involvement later on in the movie, right? But,
yeah. I think maybe some character development on the villains would have been a little bit better. Maybe like if they kind of understood and then changed a little bit by the end of the movie as a race.
Like if they're characterized as like antagonists, you mean?
Yeah, I mean they're kind of characterized. I'd put them at neutral right now in this film, but they're almost like chaotic neutral or something like that, or they're almost like an evil neutral or something. I don't know.
Well, I mean, like it's not really okay. They don't even initiate, going on the defensive, right? It's Rocket's fault because
that's true. He's right. He steals the Harvey
He's the
batteries.
one exactly. So like I don't think you can really place them in the fully antagonistic realm, but I guess maybe later on when they go to wherever it is and they want to hire Yondu, or no, is it Yondu? Yeah, it's Yondu.
They want to hire Yondu,
right? So I guess like at that point, like I guess reaching to those kind of depths that makes you a little bit more antagonistic, but maybe not enough for them to be focused on so much, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, I think you're probably right on that, but they obviously have villainous intentions, especially as we get to the end. But nowhere near as like Ego, the true villain of this. But I just feel like I don't know, they could have been developed a little bit better, or just removed from the plot entirely. So obviously Rocket steals the batteries. That causes this whole chase scene that we then eventually get, where as they're leaving on their ship, they are instantly chased by the Sovereign, who come by with all their ships. And as you mentioned before, it's kind of like a video game. They're in these like virtual pods that try to destroy them and all that.
They're like, what's the word? Oh, remotely piloted.
Yeah, exactly. Remotely piloted. So it doesn't really make a difference when they destroy them because they can just probably pilot another ship. So then they have to... This is, again, like everything in here is calculated to try to push along the main themes, which is family. And in this movie... this movie is very much trying to get into like some heavy territory, so it has to portray some intense motifs, and they start that off right away here.
Right.
They start that off with Rocket and Peter not being able to lead, so they're both trying to lead the ship and literally both trying to steer the ship, and they can't agree. So they don't see eye to eye, and that's like something they're really trying to drill in you right away. Now, I don't mind this too much. It's not that bad. It's just it makes Rocket seem a little bit more antagonistic than he needs to be, I think, because he does come off really annoying for the first. I shouldn't say annoying, but he comes off just really like harsh at the first bit. But they do a pretty good job with his redemption later on, anyways. So it's not that bad.
Yeah, I agree. I think for the fact that I didn't realize that they focused on, or there's a lot of focus on Rocket. Yeah, more for the second. Maybe not second half, but like throughout this movie, there's more than I realized after watching it this time around. And like the very last scene of the whole movie is his.
For sure.
Just close up of him, right? And so it makes me think like, oh, I guess they're really using his attachment or fear of lacking the attachment to kind of propel this whole relationship arc going on. And it's interesting that it seems like they do kind of start it off with the bickering with Star-Lord, with Quill, and then eventually that kind of carries forward towards the relationship. I guess it kind of gets cast off, transitioned to Quill and his dad, and then kind of back to Rocket all over again, because now he gets that time with Yondu.
Exactly.
It's kind of this weird four-way father-son kind of relationship kind of square.
And that's a really good segue into what the main thing I really want to say about this movie is that what I've noticed is this is like my trying to be like really smart kind of sentence I'll say about these two movies actually, is that Guardians of the Galaxy 1 I think was amazing with the jokes. It was really, really funny, especially on these rewatches. I found it so funny, and it's emotional in some scenes for sure, but like thinking about the ending to that movie, it definitely is not like hard-hitting, powerful, emotional. It's just like pretty good on the emotional side, but it's very, very funny. Now this movie I think is very, very emotional, and I think it's actually really hard-hitting on the emotions if you really deep dive into what these characters are thinking, and you get into these scenes that are actually like insanely emotional. But then on the joke side, I feel like it's good but not great. So I feel like they missed the boat on the jokes, but the emotions are really good. So it's almost a flip of the first movie.
Right.
And the jokes, don't get me wrong, they're not bad. It's just a lot of it feels think tank. A lot of it feels like it was forced. You mentioned earlier they were trying to hit their mark and throw their jokes into this first act. And I felt like that's throughout most of the movie. A lot of the jokes don't feel like an improvised line with somebody having fun with it. A lot of the jokes feel like it was written, given to a bunch of test audiences to see which one was the funniest, and then they threw it in.
Yeah. I think that happens a lot with Drax. Okay, so I was going to say that, with the whole relationship thing, I think almost every character probably has some sort of person that they have like a back and forth, some sort of relationship with, right? So
to understand their character as well as the main character, or the other character they're talking to.
Yeah, and I think at the same time they're also, I guess they're in a way meant to just like kind of round out the whole family motif that you're talking about. So with Rocket, I mean, he kind of has the moments. Well, eventually it becomes a thing with him and Yondu, I think, but then Quill also gets a thing with Yondu, Quill with his dad, Gamora with Nebula, Drax almost in a way with MAntis.
Definitely with MAntis. I think those scenes are really intense. We'll get to them later, but I like those. Who
else was there?
Groot? Well, I don't know. Like, did you say Gamora and Nebula already?
And Nebula.
Yeah. Okay, you did. Okay.
Yeah.
Groot doesn't really have. I think actually there is a nice family bind of them all with Groot, where they're like taking care of Groot as a child.
Oh,
so okay. There's many like lines, especially at the very beginning there, where you kind of realize they all have this like natural like parental kind of watch over Groot,
right?
Which is really interesting. But a lot of it's just about the family ties. I do just enjoy that, but we'll get into those scenes. We got to get out of the first act here to get down into some of the nitty gritty stuff. So they get chased by the Sovereign. They go through the asteroid field that both Rocket and both Peter think that they can do. And they get through the whole thing, and there's a giant fight scene. Drax goes out on the back of the ship, and he's being he's rope. He's like tied to a rope on the back of the ship and shooting the ball.
Something like that.
Having a lot of fun with that, and then they Rocket sees the little man. He sees the little man on top of the ship. And he goes, "I just saw a guy." I do really like that. I think it's really funny. And then they crash land onto the forest planet, this unknown forest planet.
What was I gonna say? Oh yeah, there's that moment where I think in theaters I was like, actually every time I watch this part, when that last like what's that culture called? Like the gold people? What are they called?
Oh, the Sovereign.
Oh, they're called the Sovereign.
Yeah.
Oh, I assumed that it was just like their planet.
I think they might have another name, but I think Sovereign is like their allegiance or something. I honestly can't remember, but when I searched it up later, it said Sovereign. Their gang.
their gang sign. Okay, so the last guy is Xylac, and he's the one who, like, everybody's
nice
watching.
Xylac.
Like, you suck, Xylac. Typical. Like what? Like
I know it just feels so weird.
Yeah, it's very odd. Like I think that's kind of one of those moments you're talking about where they kind of just like really formulaically put that in.
Yeah.
But I think I don't like. For me, it doesn't flow with the rest of the movie. I don't like those moments.
Yeah,
like,
I agree with you.
It doesn't
and that's
work.
where I feel like they missed their mark. Now, I'm not saying it's not a funny movie. Overall, I find this movie quite funny.
Yeah,
but
for sure.
There's just these weird like slip and misses. And like, I feel like a lot of it has to do with those Sovereign people. And yeah, you're right, Drax as well, unfortunately. I feel like a lot of his lines get missed. Or missed the mark, I guess. Yeah, so there's that. They crash land on this random planet. And then Q, Peter's dad, walks in.
Yes, the one-inch man.
Yes, the one. Behold, the one-inch
the
man.
one-inch man.
Oh yeah, there's some more bickering between Peter and Rocket before the one-inch man comes down. But when we meet Peter's dad, it's very quick into the movie. We're only like 20 minutes into the movie and we're already meeting his dad. I remember the theaters made this, the trailers made this scene seem like it was a really big reveal. And it actually happens quite early in the film. So we're meeting actually the antagonist of the film quite early and get to understand him early on. Which is really interesting because that does pose the question to the audience right at the beginning. Like, hey, should you trust this guy or should you not trust this guy? Because immediately Gamora and Quill don't trust him. And it's Gamora, as we did with our intro scene there. She's the one who actually tries to convince Peter that maybe you should just open up a little bit for your dad. Which I think is kind of a cool thing.
I think the reason why I was really confused about this movie was because of I guess maybe in a way there's some sort of redirect with Ego, because he comes out, he's the dad. It almost seems like, okay, well, he should be like, knowing that he's the dad, there's a pretty good chance that he's going to be part of like the good guys in some way. Like we'll probably find out some things in his history, or he's got some things up his sleeve that make him seem like not so good. But I didn't expect him. Maybe I can't really recall, but I probably didn't expect him to be like the main bad guy, not knowing much about his character beforehand, or even the Guardians of the Galaxy. So I was totally kind of thrown off by trying to figure out, like, okay, who is going to be the main bad guy? Like, are they going to be revealed later? Like, what exactly is happening? Is MAntis going to be sort of like behind the scenes, the bad one who's just controlling stuff? I don't know. It's kind of weird for me.
Yeah. Well, they do. I think they ask a lot of those questions early on to confuse you, so that you're not really too sure what's going on. They also set up Yondu, as we see right after Peter's dad gets introduced. They go into a scene with Yondu on a Ravager planet, which I just saw on the screen is called Contraxia.
Yeah, I don't think it's a Ravager planet because...
Or it's within the Ravager realm, though, is it not?
I guess it's... Oh, potentially, yeah. I just know that when... what's his name? Stakar. Played by Rocky. When
you don't know.
when he comes out, like, he gets mad at the host and says, "Oh, you just lost the business of 99 Ravager squadrons."
Yeah, because you served one. Yeah.
Yeah. So
I guess you're right. They're probably like a free open planet then.
Potential. I don't know. I guess like they probably need specifically. If they have 99 squadrons or squads or whatever, like they're probably the bulk of their business.
I think it's kind of funny that it's a planet that clearly has got some kind of prostitution to it, and this is why the Ravagers are there. They're partying and drinking, and it's called Contraxia. That's definitely on purpose.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, for sure. And I don't know, is it just me, or are they meant to like look like Marilyn Manson? Because I kind of get that vibe from them.
Oh, weird. Yeah, that's actually a good point. Like the citizens, the robots or whatever they are.
The robot, yeah, they're all robots, right?
It's actually quite sad. So obviously Yondu has frequented this place to try to get some kind of joy. And he's obviously not happy. And you can see the robot deleting its memory. So whatever time he spent with this robot, let's just...
Oh, is that what's happening?
Well, at the beginning, it's like it's erasing its like eyes, and it looks to me like it's deleting its memory. And when the camera cuts to Yondu, you can see the sadness on his face. And like he almost
it's so unfulfilling.
Yeah, he like nods his head as in like, yep, that's the way life is or something. Like there's so much going on with Yondu that is just insane in this movie. He's almost like the main character. Like he's
for sure. I kind of wish he was.
Yeah, he's got so much, and his acting. This guy Michael Rooker, like he's fantastic in this movie.
He does a superb job with this character.
I remember sort of liking Yondu when I first saw Guardians, and then obviously in our rewatch, I loved Yondu. But watching this movie in theaters, I was suddenly like, Yondu is the best character.
Oh, he's so cool. Yeah.
But I don't know what it is, but this whole Ravager scene where they're over here and the Yondu sees Stakar and they have this moment, like, I really like it. I do think Stallone's a little Stallone in his dialogue, so it's hard to understand what he's saying. But man, the two of them together, like, it builds this world that you don't know, and I really like that.
Yeah, you automatically want to find out a little bit more about like what's the deal behind like these two specifically and the rest of the Ravagers.
I want a prequel. I think would be great if we could have these characters when they were younger and see like the things they got up to and stuff. I think that'd be really, really fun.
Yeah. I was gonna look into it, but then we later on in one of the post-credit scenes we see Stakar with
his crew.
I think with his crew, and I was wondering like that must have been some sort of comic on its own.
Yeah, I believe that there was. I can't remember now, but I believe there was something where like Yondu was a part of the Stakar crew or something like that. In fact, I think that the Yondu ship and Guardians that we know it are actually quite different than the comics. So.
Yeah, probably. Yeah. A lot of the characters are pretty different from the comics, but it's meant to be for the MCU, for the Marvel Cinematic universe. This is funny when the Sovereigns show up to the Ravager planet here, or I'm sorry, to Catraxia to go and see Yondu to ask him if he can go and hunt down the Guardians for these Harbulary batteries. I like how they've got the little red carpet and they're wheeling it out, and then they kind of make that joke where like it gets stuck. Like, it gets stuck, yeah.
See, I think if they carried themselves and took themselves incredibly seriously, and then those jokes hit, I think that'd be really funny. But unfortunately, since they kind of go back and forth between serious and not serious, it's not as funny, maybe. But like, but that is a funny scene because that planet, you're not expecting something like that. So
yeah, well, you're not expecting two of those things. You're not expecting like one for them to be rolling out a carpet.
Yeah.
In the middle of this planet for them to get the priestess there, but two, you're obviously not expecting it to not work. So I guess it's one of those like, it's like a situational humor kind of works with them just because of like their mannerisms. But when it's meant to be like deliberate by them, it kind of that's when it falls flat. I guess. Yeah.
I find them like the elves in a fantasy movie. They're a lot like the elves. They're especially in like Lord of the Rings. They're all high and mighty and all that kind of stuff. But it's almost like them making fun of elves in fantasy, where they're like
kind of. Oh yeah.
Everyone else is a lot more serious, and then the elves don't really have a place in this world.
Yeah. I guess it is kind of like that. Yeah, you're right.
After this, the Guardians are then talking with Peter's dad. We get that scene that we did at the beginning where we talked about Gamora convincing Peter that maybe he should go with his dad and go and learn more about this person that he's always kind of wanted around in his life but didn't really want to admit. So I call this like the great split of the Guardians. This is kind of the moment where they decide to split off. And it's a little bit sad watching this. When I was watching this in the theaters, I remember watching this for the second time and thinking like, oh, this is when we're not going to see the characters together for a while. Like, I like it when the Guardians are together. And for most of the first movie, they're all together. But in this one, they start to break off at this moment, and you're like, oh, we're not really going to see them all together until like the end of the movie, pretty much. And so it was a little bit, when I already knew it was coming, it's like sad to see that. It's like, oh, I wish they were all together again, but we don't have any more footage of them together after this. Like, except for the ending. I really like I really like the song that comes in though when it says like never break the chain, and it's like the family breaking at that moment. So I just really like that moment. That's pretty smart.
Yeah, in theaters I didn't really think much of it, and I totally forgot that they split apart for a while. And then watching it this time, I was like, what? Why are they splitting? And I was just so confused.
It's weird. It almost doesn't feel like it should happen, and I don't know if there's a good enough excuse for it to happen. They'd have to repair the ship, but then Peter has to leave to go see his dad. Like, why don't they just wait a little bit longer and then repair the ship and then go?
Yeah, or like, can't Ego repair the ship?
Yeah, I don't totally understand.
Don't want to reveal that kind of power just yet.
Yeah, but for the storyline purpose of it, I don't mind that it's happening.
Also, it's kind of cool the way that Rocket is repairing. He's just got kind of like this. It looks like a power hose.
Yeah.
And then he just sprays the hull, and it just comes back together, I guess.
Yeah, I don't know the logic behind that, but it's kind of cool.
I like it. I want one of those.
That'd be very easy, I think. If life was like
it would
that.
Be. Yeah, like, oh, I crashed. Oh, that's okay.
Okay, so now we got Quill, Gamora, Drax, and I think it's it. And they're meeting Mantis on Ego's ship. So Mantis puts Ego down to sleep, and we've got the scene we saw in the trailers a lot where we now understand that Mantis can control people's emotions.
Well, she can't necessarily she can control, like she can sense them and feel them.
She can feel them, but she can also send him to sleep. So
so to an extent she can. I can't remember how she explains it, but yeah, she can, I guess, use some sort of like emotion suppressor, I guess, in a way, or something. I'll have to double check how that works, but yeah.
But we get the moment where Drax and Peter are betting against like what her antenna can do, and if they're anything other than that, yeah. Which is funny, but I do like how like then she puts like a hand on Peter and she understands that he's got like, she's like, I feel love. And it's like, yeah, I guess I have a general love
for all people. No,
sexual love
for
her.
Love. For her. It's so good.
Yeah.
I really like her character.
Yeah.
I think Mantis is, I don't know what she's like in the comics, but I think her character in this movie is really fun.
Yeah, I agree. And I do like the whole like she's about to touch Gamora and then Gamora's just like, nope.
Nope, not happening.
Yeah. It's good. It's a good character to have in a show like this or a movie like this, so that you can understand other characters, and we see that played on later on in the movie, and it works really, really, really well. If the audience doesn't know what someone's thinking, and then she can go in and tell you what they're thinking, it's like, that's really cool.
Which is probably important for the whole family motif thing, right?
Exactly.
Like, because if it's all about relationships, sometimes you can't quite understand what the other person is trying to say to you. So you'd have to have some sort of like third party to make it really, really clear. And I think that's okay, in movies like where you use some sort of other device like that to make it clear, because you can't always make it clear for the audience just with every single method, I think. And so for them to be using Mantis in that kind of way, I think that's a good idea.
Yeah.
I think of Mantis as kind of like this movie's version of Drax. In a way.
Well, yeah, actually, and I think that's why the two of them are together so much, is they're very similar in that sense. Like, Drax is very literal, but she's also very literal as well, but like emotionally literal, I guess.
Yeah, and I guess, well, she has a lot to learn. Drax maybe not necessarily has a lot to learn. Like, he knows things, but he just doesn't, I guess, accept them, or he just doesn't see them the way that everybody else does.
Right.
Like sarcasm, for example.
Yeah. So... yeah, I like all those moments, and I think it's funny meeting her on the ship there. And
also Drax's laugh.
Oh yeah,
his big, huge, boisterous laugh.
Yeah.
It happens a few times throughout the movie, but it's when I was watching with my wife, she's like, "He's got a really good laugh."
He does. He
does.
I feel like that's just kind of the laugh that actor put on, and then they just kind of was like, "That's perfect." Like
that works. Yeah.
Yeah.
It doesn't, like, it's not. In a way, I guess it's realistic. It's obviously meant for this character specifically,
for sure.
But I think it's not just perfect for this character, but I think it's perfect for this movie.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's almost kind of contagious too. Like when he laughs, like I want to laugh, even if I don't really think it's funny. I just want to laugh because he's doing it.
I agree.
Yeah.
Outside of that, we now have Rocket, who after repairing the ship is just kind of, I guess, watching the ship, and they make it seem like he's not really paying as much attention. He's maybe singing along with Quill's music, and we've got these Ravager people that are sneaking up in the middle of the night trying to take him. So it's pretty interesting because as they get in there, you realize that Rocket has set up all these traps, and I really do like this scene because it shows off how good Rocket is.
Oh yeah,
it's just really cool how smart it is. It's all tactical. It's all thought out. Even when it comes down to just him versus a bunch of guys, he even just rigs a device and makes it work for him. So it's sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say that. So yeah, I see him. Excuse me. I kind of see him as this movie's sort of Iron Man, like Tony Stark in a way.
Yeah.
That he's the always kind of prepared guy, and then is really good with like technology and all that kind of stuff. And in this sequence, I really like how it's not just about him using the tech and relying on the tech, but he's actually physically getting engaged too. Like he jumps from head to head on a lot of those Ravagers, so you can put that little like electrocution kind of thing on him, and then sets it all off. And then and has fun with that like anti-gravity kind of thing, just like pulsing them up and down, like just juggling them. And it's a really fun scene.
For sure. I mean, I remember it in the trailer thinking that's really unique. I wonder what's happening there. And then watching it on screen, I was like, oh wow, like it's almost like watching a really cool dance or something. It's just really fun to watch this action scene. Just Rocket versus everyone, and he just totally wins.
Yeah.
Well, I guess he doesn't actually. I guess he loses in the end, but he wasn't ready for Nebula to turn on the team. So after he takes out everybody, eventually he gets captured. And just skipping ahead to that scene. He fights. I forgot about that. He fights 2 guys on his own, which is also really good too. So he doesn't just use guns. At the very end, he beats up a guy. He flicks off of one guy and like jumps onto another guy's face and like beats him up onto the ground. It's just super awesome. Yondu with his arrow is actually, I forgot about that. We're just watching it now, but Yondu with his arrow is how he captures Rocket. So Yondu was prepared for whatever Rocket had, and I think this is also more apparent later when Yondu says that they're very similar. I think Yondu can kind of just expect people to be as they are, and I think he knows who Rocket is already. So for him, he probably knew what Rocket was going to do.
Yeah, I think he actually goes into that speech a little bit later when they're more isolated. I think it's after...
He does, yeah. It's just, this is a good moment to show that he understands what Rocket's doing.
Right.
Yeah. And then Nebula breaks free. She tricks Groot.
Yeah. Aww,
little baby Groot. He's so cute.
Yeah.
And just a moment as we're just watching it too. Rocket's CGI is really good. Like it's really good. It looks so real for a talking raccoon.
I like how so a lot of the emotion, I think you have to see it in somebody's eyes, right? I mean, sometimes you get it in like the quivering lips and stuff like that. But with Rocket, there's a lot of fur going on, and I kind of find like the eyes get a little lost. But even still, I feel like they're able to like with just like the darkness around the eyes, they're able to portray like quite a bit of emotion from his face. Which and I don't normally kind of really get feelings from CGI characters on screen, but with Rocket I think I really was. And it could also just be because like Bradley Cooper I think he does a really good job like with his voice acting for this character, like going through all those emotions, but like in conjunction with the visuals we get from Rocket, it's really well done for sure.
I agree. Yeah. It's very well done. If you understand exactly what Rocket's trying to say, if you had it on mute and you know what he's trying to say, then that's a really well done character. So what happens is an interesting mutiny of the Ravagers here. So Taserface, as the villain for the Ravagers,
Taserface,
he decides that Yondu's going a little bit too easy on Quill and his gang, which is true. That's a really valid point, and Yondu is going easy on him, but we understand later why he's going easy on him.
Why is Yondu?
But so Taserface pretty much changes the alliance a little bit here with the help of Nebula, and they can then capture Yondu, Rocket, and Groot at this moment. There's that little joke that's happening right now on the screen where what's her face? Nebula eats the fruit and she's like, it's not ripe. I remember not liking that the first time and second time I watched it in theaters. Like, I didn't really enjoy the whole like kicking around the fruit thing of like, don't eat it, it's not ready yet. And then she just eventually eats it and she doesn't like it. I don't know. I never really was into that.
How about this time? Like this time watching it, same thing? Not into it?
Yeah, same thing. I don't know. Maybe it's a funny joke, but either I never got it or it just didn't hit hard enough for me. I don't know.
I almost kind of see that now as, like, because it was almost each of the Guardians, I think.
At some moment, interacting.
At some moment, each of them tell her, like, oh, don't eat it, it's not ripe.
Yeah.
Even though they're her prisoner in a way. And then, and then later on, she finds out that, like, from her own accord, that it's not ripe.
Yeah.
That she was wrong this whole time, but it's almost like her family knew, like, the family of the Guardians, right? They all knew, they're on the same page. They know exactly what she should and should not be having.
Yeah.
And yet she's kind of like this rebellious person who breaks free and realizes, like, oh yeah, they were right this whole time.
Yeah.
So I almost like, to me, it's kind of like this family motif. It's probably a bit of a stretch to say that.
No, I think you're totally right. I think that's actually what they're trying to do, but they're also trying to play it off as like a funny joke. They're trying to do both at once.
Oh yeah.
And I don't know. I think it's weird. It doesn't really come across the way I think they want it to.
Yeah.
So that's actually where I end Act 1. I don't know about you, but I ended it there.
Well, you could ask, and then you would find out about me.
Where do you end Act 1, then?
In the same place.
Oh my god!
My last words for Act 1 were, it's not ripe.
Perfect. Wow, we're just always on the same page with that. I don't know how that happens.
Great.
Hey there, Mr. Blue.
Oh, is that how it goes? Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Okay, well, let's move into Act 2. Which I don't have a name for, so why don't you go ahead and say your name?
All right. Mine, I think this one probably made more sense than my first act title. So Act 2 for me is called You Can't Handle the Truth. So I find like there are a lot of moments where there's some sort of hidden message or something hidden. So, for example, like Mantis, she wants to tell Drax something but doesn't. Ego obviously has something we're starting to see a little bit more of that he's hiding. What is it? Why did I say? Why did I write Taserface? Oh, I think
Taserface.
People can't handle his name, I think. And then there's that whole thing about how Yondu told Peter, like, the reason why he kept him was because he was skinny. It was good for thieving.
Good for thieving.
So I think there's a lot of kind of like hidden truths happening that I think we start to see in Act 2.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna call mine "Hooked on a Feeling" because everyone is acting on emotion.
Okay. I like it. Yeah, that's good.
Okay. We're gonna go into a scene here. I'll play Mantis. You play Drax.
Okay. How did you get to this weird, dumb planet?
Ego found me in my larva state, orphaned on my homeworld. He raised me by hand and kept me as his own.
So you're a pet?
I suppose.
People usually want cute pets. Why would Ego want such a hideous one?
I am hideous?
You are horrifying to look at. Yes, but that's a good thing.
Oh?
When you're ugly and someone loves you, you know they love you for who you are. Beautiful people never know who to trust.
Well, then I am certainly grateful to be ugly.
Sorry I stopped that flow, but...
Oh, that's totally fine.
That's funny.
Yeah, their interactions are interesting, and I don't think it's a coincidence. Well, I don't know. There's a deleted scene, actually, that I just watched before we started this, of them talking in that moment, and I think it gets really, really good. I like the scene in the movie, but it gets even better with the deleted scene, I feel like, and it gets much more into the emotional side of things instead of the jokey side of things.
Does it give a little bit more background for each of the characters?
A tiny bit. It's more Mantis just explaining things a little bit that talk about the themes of the movie a bit better, about family.
Oh, okay.
And she's explaining, like, the love that she's now understanding because she's, like, listening to Drax's emotions. And it's really interesting. She makes, like, a really good, like, point about people that she's, like, and, like, why they all are so emotional in this episode, pretty much. But it's just a really good scene. I liked it.
Okay.
Anyway, so we get at the beginning here, Ego showing off his homeworld and explaining that he is a celestial being, more like a god.
With a little G.
With a little G.
Yeah.
He had to make himself into a human. Well, he made, like, his whole world. He created his whole planet.
Kind of just made everything, yeah.
And then he created a human-like form so he could experience what life would be like as a humanoid and travel the galaxy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Everything from a brain, right? Like, he started as a brain?
He started as a planet. He starts as the core of the planet, I think. And he started to create the planet. Then he eventually created the human being he is now. But he didn't start as a human.
Is his the core of his planet, was that not the brain?
Oh, I thought it was more of a heart, but I guess it could be a brain. I guess it's kind of
it was both.
In the air. Yeah, it's kind of like, I don't know, up to you scientifically, however you want to see it.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
So then he shows him around the planet. He kind of talks to Peter about how he met his mom, all that kind of stuff. And just goes into most of, like, the backstory of, why Quill has some powers and all that kind of stuff. And
why is Quill? Yeah.
Why is Quill? It's kind of fun. I like it. Mm-hmm. My notes are out of order. They always are.
Cool. Well, I was gonna say I really like. I feel like we probably didn't have to have so much. Maybe we did have to have a lot of CGI, but I think the presentation of him showing his world and how he's doing his own kind of like Ego-esque slideshow, where they're in those little eggs and they kind of like
up here
open and close, and it shows it like
his little diagrams or whatnot of his life.
Yeah. So I think, like, the CGI is really cool. Probably a little more than we need, because I think we could have gotten the point. Like, I almost feel like it slows down just because they're trying to use so much CGI.
Yeah, CGI.
CGI to tell the story.
CGIF,
They can be a little bit more swift with it, but I think that's being a little bit nitpicky. I just feel like, because, like, if they can move this part along, that we can kind of we can move more into like the tension that builds between the two of them, between Ego and Quill, as opposed to, like, getting Quill more time to learn about the history. I mean, like, maybe they go hand in hand, but I don't know. I feel like there could be slightly better of a balance there.
That's true. I think so. It would have been kind of cool to get more into the powers of Ego and what Quill could have done.
Oh, yeah.
But I guess at the same point, they're trying to get a specific part across in the story of family, so I guess they are trying to get away from that kind of stuff. Like Doctor Strange, for example, they spend a lot of time with building up the powers in the world around him so that we can understand it better. But in this, I guess it's not really the point of the movie, so that's why they don't want to get into it.
Yeah, I think you're right.
We then get a scene here where Taserface is taking over the whole Ravagers. Taserface! They've captured Yondu and Rocket and put them in a jail cell. And they are now mutinying all... Well, is mutinying the right word? I guess, what's it? Overboarding?
Mutinying.
Starboarding? No. What's the word?
I only know jettison from, like, Star Wars.
Well, jettison is when you eject anything off the ship.
So they would be...
So, like, jettison cargo would be, like, how you'd use that term. But, like, when you're actually, like, killing off your crewmates and throwing them overboard, there's a word for it. It's not mutiny, though, because that's the captain.
Purging. No.
Well, maybe you're right. Let's just say jettisoning. They're jettisoning crew. Jettisoning crew.
Sorry, it's not Star Wars that I know that from. It's Transformers, like the animated movie.
Oh,
like the original. Yeah. Because when it's not Starscream. It's when the crew's starting to mutiny and they're like, we need to jettison some weight. It's Astroplane or Astrojet, whatever he is, the one that's actually like carrying all of the Decepticons.
Oh, okay, yeah.
He's the one that says like it's getting too heavy, we need to jettison some weight, and then they start kicking out all like the old, like the kind of beat up Decepticons.
Right.
So this is pretty much that scene. But the slow death that we see.
Yeah, it's pretty
from
brutal.
The Ravagers that get ejected. Oh wow.
And it's a bit of a parallel for the end of the movie too, which is interesting. I mean, like you feel bad for Yondu and you feel like he's about to go and be sent out into space like that, but he also seems like he's lost the will to live. Like, he doesn't really have much emotion. It's pretty brutal. He's just, like, staring down at the ground. But it's pretty crazy, because that's actually how the ending of the movie is going to go for Yondu as well. So,
So I guess, in a way, foreshadowing.
Yeah. But yeah, we have Taserface, which is an awful villain, but they obviously don't really want him to be an amazing villain either, because they just make fun of him pretty much the whole movie. So
Exactly, yeah.
I actually think this works. It's a weird way of the same formula of the Sovereign that doesn't work. This one's a weird way of it kind of working. It's not super great. I don't like how Rocket makes fun of his name too much. Like, he goes beyond how much he needs to make fun of his name.
Yeah, and so did the Sovereign.
Yes, exactly, yeah. But, like, playing the over-the-top nature of it is actually a little bit realistic. You know, you have a villain who's really... His IQ seems really low. He seems kind of like a dumb person, but he's big and he's strong and he's powerful to persuade people. And
it's ugly.
And that seems to work, though. I actually do like that part of it, because it's like, okay, you can have a ship full of a bunch of idiots who are following a big idiot, you know?
Yeah,
and then you've got, like,
idiot,
Yondu, who's like, well, that sucks. Like, I wish I was able to persuade them, but unfortunately, because of my own actual smarts and emotion, now here I am. I'm tied up to a chair, and I can't do anything about it. So I think that's great. You don't actually need Rocket, I think, making fun of his name that much. Now, Rocket can rebel a lot, but just the way he makes fun of his name is just a little bit forced, I think.
But I think at the same time, like, Rocket is that kind of... Like, he's that cheeky character that I don't think it matters what kind of situation he's in. He's always going to sort of have, like, that last laugh kind of persona. True. So I mean, yeah, you could say it's a little bit over the top. I think it's because the scene itself doesn't need to be the way it is, and that's why I think that's why Rocket comes across as the one who's over the top, because he's the only one that is actually competing against Taserface, like, in this scene specifically. Everybody else is kind of just like sidelines, right? And a lot more inconsequential.
Does this scene not have imagery of, like, Hook, like Captain Hook or something? Like, you've got, like, Groot in, like, a little bird cage who's, like, laughing and stuff like that. And you got this villain who's, like, got somebody who's tied up to, like, a pole or something. I don't know. It's not necessarily exactly like it, but it's very pirate-like. Like, they did a pretty good job with, like, that imagery, I think.
I'm picturing when he's who is it? It's Glenn Close, right? Who is the Glenn Close plays that guy who they end up taking and put him in the boombox.
I don't remember.
I think it's Glenn Close. Yeah, like when Hook is trying, he's basically saying, like, somebody didn't believe that Hook could capture Peter Pan's kids. Like, there was only one person of the whole crew, and then it happened to be Glenn Close's character, and so he walks up to him, and he says, "It was you," and then Glenn Close starts, like, crying, and then puts him in puts the character in the boombox or whatever it is. Like, it's basically like this treasure box with scorpions.
Right.
But I feel like that moment
why is Glenn Close That's such a funny scene. And Glenn Close starts crying. Just no.
It's so good.
It's so good.
As
Dennis
a kid-
Hoffman's amazing in that movie too. I'm sorry, this is now a Hook podcast. We're gonna watch Hook.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's later when we do our Robin Williams marathon, I think.
Oh, I can't wait. Oh, that's such a good idea.
Yeah.
We've been sticking to more like franchise names, but yeah, we should stick to actors.
Actors, yeah.
Oh boy, that'll be fun.
That'll be a good one. Okay, moving back to Guardians then. That's just a funny scene though. Anybody else type in Glenn Close Hook and then watch the first scene. It's hilarious.
Yeah.
All right, here we go. So, where are we? We're after we get the Ravager scene, we then have Nebula decide to break away from the Ravagers. Rajagavers.
The Rajavers.
She wants to go and take a ship to go find her sister Gamora. Because she wants to destroy her. We also have another line that, again, I find a little bit over the top. And I actually like Sean Gunn in this. I think he's good.
Oh, yeah.
But I don't like his line where he's like, he asks her what she's going to do with the ship, and then she gets all intense.
Oh, yeah.
And then it's just a little much. I don't think it's his fault at all. I just think it's the script. And it's like, I don't know. He's playing it off way too jokey. If somebody actually was as intense as Nebula was in that moment, telling her exact motivations to a character, I think he'd be a little bit freaked out, and then he would walk away, realistically. But in this, he plays it off like a weird joke, and he says, like, ooh, a frilly hat, and kind of makes like a funny joke, and then walks away. Like,
yeah, it's a really outdated style of joke, like playing off the whole, like, oh, girls do this, girls do that kind of thing. You know, like, when was this movie?
2018, I think. Or no, 2017, I'm sorry. I said it at the beginning of the podcast.
Right, yeah, 2017.
My
so
bad.
I feel like, yeah, it's kind of weird for me, like 3 years ago, like, I don't know, I feel like it's pretty outdated to kind of call out on those kind of things. So it's weird that that's the direction that they went with the humor for this. Like, oh, I thought you would get like a pretty little hat to make all the girls say ooh. Like, what? Like,
I just think it's a weird line. It sounds like a kid wrote that line. I don't know why, but it just sounds weird to me.
It is.
There's not much thought put behind it, I don't think.
Mm-hmm.
I just think they would go like, wouldn't it be funny if he said something like this? Like, I don't know. I personally don't like it. I think it doesn't play very well.
Yeah. Me too.
Next scene we get is actually a pretty good scene where Quill gets to learn his powers from his dad. So this is where his dad starts explaining. They actually like that start where there's a big statue of his mom there, and you know, his dad is doing a really good job convincing him that like he loved his mom and that he's got all this. I don't know. He's just really excited to have somebody else who can have powers with him, kind of thing. And he explains that he just kind of wishes that his son might be able to be a Celestial just like him. They have a bit of a row though about Peter's mom because Peter thinks that his dad just left. While his dad tries to explain that there's so much more going on, you know? Mm-hmm. And it's actually a pretty good argument, or it's a pretty good emotional scene because it's very similar to a lot of people's real lives, right? Where maybe there was some kind of issue and their parents weren't around as much as they wish they were, you know? And so I think a lot of people can relate to this, even though we're talking about a complete sci-fi movie here. So it's a pretty good scene. I think it's pretty hard-hitting, and I think both actors are really good in this scene.
Yeah. I don't know if it's... Okay, this is, sorry, a side thing, but so... Peter's whole like facial hair is completely different from the first Guardians movie, and I'm pretty sure let's see, like in the first one he didn't have any like mustache or beard or anything like that. Now this one it's almost like he's got halfway to a beard. It's almost like they're trying to show he's growing up more, but then it's not a full beard because his dad gets to have the full beard.
That's interesting. Maybe in Guardians 3 he'll have a full beard. I never thought about that, but maybe he will.
He'll be bald, but all the hair goes to his chin. I don't know.
That's kind of interesting.
It's a side thing, but I almost feel like are they doing that just to make him like when he has those scenes with Ego? Yeah. Is it to make him kind of look more of that son figure where he's not
interesting.
Like? Yeah, I don't know.
I like that. I think there's actually a lot of truth to that. That definitely could be what they were doing.
Maybe.
In this scene, we have Peter kind of conjuring up energy. Yeah, creating a ball. Put into a ball. And I love the scene because it's as a father and son both working together on something, and then like I love the excitement from the dad, just Ego when he sees Peter actually make the energy. It's like so funny because it's so real, right? He's excited for a completely different motivation, but he's excited nonetheless, and it's fun to watch. And Peter gets all excited, and then they play ball for the first time. They play catch.
They play ball, and it's in slow mo.
Oh, I love it. It's like they know exactly what they're doing too, because they're like, you are laughing as an audience member because you're like, oh, ha, 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 it's kind of cheesy, right? But to Peter, this is also like everything. So
everything he's ever wanted.
Yeah, exactly. So it's pretty crazy. But I like that. The motif is pretty good there.
Yeah.
Right here we get Drax and MAntis. This is the scene that we Drantis.
Max.
This is a scene that we portrayed at the beginning, and I do love this scene. Not all of it, but I do love the scene where Drax plays off the joke, like she's ugly, all that kind of stuff, and then he says like it's okay to be ugly. And then I can't remember what's the extended, what's not the extended, but he looks over at the pools of water in front of them, and he says these pools of water remind me of my daughter. And then he explains how his daughter used to be a lot like Mantis. And then Mantis like, oh, like ugly and disgusting kind of thing, like plays off a joke. But then he gets like a lot more serious about it. And he says, no, he says innocent.
Innocent, yeah.
Yeah.
Innocent.
And I love that because it's just like, holy smokes. Like, for one,
yeah,
there's no pause in anything he says because Drax is always 100% real. But he just says innocent right away and then stares at the pond. And you're like, damn, like he's got so much he's thinking about. And then to hit it home, she just like, she touches his arm or his leg or whatever to understand his feeling and emotion, and then she's just hit immediately with how much sadness he's actually walled up with, and that's so good. Like, I don't know, I love that. But she's incredibly like sad immediately. She's like, I've never felt such sadness. And in the extended scene, she said, I've never felt such sadness, and then she says, I've never felt so much love. And it's so amazing, like how it goes further into it. Then she says, like, I've never known like people can have like such a range of emotion, right? And then he kind of explains a little bit more of his side of things, and then they just sit there in silence, and I love that they just sit in their history. It's really good scene. I think it's really cool. But then sorry, go ahead.
Well, I was gonna say they should have kept that, and at the same time, I also think it's interesting that Drax he's sort of like that big buffoon, like brawn over brain kind of character, right? Like that's pretty much his characterization amongst the team. Like that's his persona, right? So. And I find it interesting that, well, I think it's actually really cool that Mantis can learn, for the audience's sake, that he has so much more going on inside of all that that we just don't get to see because like we're focused on like the way we see Drax is the way we see Drax, but then the way she can sense Drax because of what her powers enable her to do gets us to learn that there really is so much more to Drax without us having to learn that from Drax in that kind of situation. So like say for example, like if Drax all of a sudden had still like his family around and then he's being all emotional and being with them, for us that would be like, oh, that's kind of weird, that's not the Drax that we're used to. But here he can still be that same character as Drax, even though like they're having a serious moment, and we get to learn this through another character, which I think works a lot better than having learned it through just him going through his own experiences.
Right.
Yeah.
The next scene that we go into is Rocket and Yondu. So we cut back into the Ravager's ship, and we get this scene where we were talking about it earlier on, where Rocket and Yondu are in the jail cell, and at that moment, Yondu kind of reveals a little bit more about how he understands Rocket, and he starts going off about like how Rocket stole these batteries. He was just trying to be like an asshole. He was trying to be a bad guy, and Rocket thinks nobody can understand, nobody likes him, kind of thing like that. But then Yondu knows that like they can bond over this fact that the reason they're pushing everybody away is because they don't love themselves. Essentially, they don't love who they are, but they actually have so much love to give. But they don't love who they are first, so therefore they push everyone else away because they feel like nobody else is going to want to love them back, and they don't even want to know that answer, so they push them away, which is a common psychological thing. And it's common for a lot of characters, and I think as people, we just read that really quickly in people. Like, I think when we watch a character, we can read that kind of emotion really quickly, but we don't have a very good term for it. And, whatever that is, it's clear that both those characters have that, and when he says, because you're me, it's such a good moment where you like, you as an audience member, you do understand that. You're like, that's that character type, and, like, you get it right away. But it also humanizes Rocket as much as it humanizes Yondu at the same time. Just a really good job with both of that. So I like that because that's Rocket's turning point in this movie. That's where he turns to start being a better person. And then we also get an awesome moment with Groot, where you feel bad for Groot because he was being tortured as the mascot for these Ravagers. And
they were like pouring alcohol, like some sort of space alcohol.
Yeah, something on him.
On him, and,
luckily, he's fine. He's just like walking, sauntering, all sad and whatever. And then they try to get him to get the prototype fin.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Oh. So I looked up an old image of, or not an old image. Well, yeah, an image of Yondu, like in the comics, when he has like a giant fin, but his giant fin spans like almost his whole body.
Yeah, it's huge.
So it's a giant, like he's just like a big sail ship. Which is, I mean, it's kind of cool that they found a way to make his like that look work. But I'd be so interested to see in a live action how that would look if they really replicated that whole fin.
Yeah, I wonder if one day we'll see something
prototype fin.
like
It's
that.
the one that's the size of a surfboard.
Yeah, Groot dragging it over. This is another scene that is funny. I really enjoyed the scene, and I found that it drags on too long.
A little bit.
But I almost don't mind, only because we haven't seen much of Rocket and Groot having fun like we did in the first one so much. So I enjoy this moment because they're having fun, and I just kind of let it be. I do like the line where Rocket's like translating for Groot about hats. He's like, and then he just find out that it's not a part of their head. And that's why you hate hats. Like it's not a funny line, but I really appreciate it because it's more Rocket and Groot banter, and I love that.
Exactly.
So it's character developing for me, but not necessarily funny, and that's what I like about it.
Yeah, it is, and I think also this scene needs to be a little bit longer-ish, just because we have to see that there's so much Groot will get confused. Because later on, we have that whole thing where Rocket's trying to get him to make sure he presses the bomb sequence in the correct order, right? So yeah, flick the switch, both switches, then press the button, press the correct one, and but then we see that like, oh, he's not getting it, but then we know why. It's because in this earlier scene we saw that, oh yeah, he doesn't understand stuff. So by the time we get to that, we're like, oh right, he doesn't understand stuff. Is this gonna work? It creates that kind of like question for the audience, like, is it gonna happen? If it doesn't, then what? So yeah, it doesn't. Probably doesn't have to be that long, but I do know what you mean though. Like it does drag, but it could, in a way, it works. And yeah, the characterization, I think, the banter between Groot and Rocket, I think, yeah, that works out for that.
Right. I do really like when he gives him the patch and he goes, it's the drawer that looks just like this. And then he gives him the patch, and then Groot just puts it on his head, thinks it's a hat. It's just so funny because of the way how slow he's going. It's just hilarious. Like you know that he doesn't understand.
You want me to wear this?
And I always forget this, but it's just hilarious that Groot actually never figures it out. In no way, he never actually got it right. And Sean Gunn to the rescue. So.
Yeah, and exactly. So that's the thing. Like Groot eventually does not get it right.
Yeah.
So that's why we have to bring that later on to the end of the movie. Like, is he going to get it right? Yeah. Because we haven't seen him do it yet, right?
Okay, so then afterwards we've got this amazing scene. It's what an interesting song to play during the fight scene here. Just like it's so weird.
And I like how Rocket, it's almost like a part of his turning point too. Like Rocket's the one who says like, oh, do you know where Quill's music is? Like he wants to kind of have the embodiment of Quill, like, or not the embodiment, but
good point.
He's already accustomed to how Quill works.
Yes.
He wants to like have that feeling like while they're doing this task.
Yeah, that's good. I like that. That's I never thought about it in that way, but that's totally right. Interesting. Yeah, it's him getting closer to Quill in a weird and then obviously his motivation this whole scene is to get to Quill. So wow, that's really cool. Exactly. I like that. This scene is one of those scenes that doesn't necessarily make any sense at all, but is really fun to watch. So I love the scene. Like, it doesn't really make sense, but it's fun to watch everybody just get hurt. I love the music. And it's a really cool action scene with just the stuff that goes on. The whistling kind of missile that goes everywhere. The way it works as if it's like a music video almost. It's just fun. This is what makes Guardians of the Galaxy fun, and I feel like this is a lot like the first film here. So just a fun scene overall.
This whole slow-mo walk and then into just chaos everywhere.
And again,
I looked it up.
Sorry,
go ahead.
Again, just showing how much damage he can do with just like a little missile, like a piercing arrow, is just so cool.
Yeah. So I looked it up. It's called the Yaka arrow.
Okay.
And I didn't really look up too much into it. I found it because throughout the scene, I was like, oh, couldn't he just kill Thanos with this? And so I was looking it up, and then people had different reasonings. I don't know if there's an actual like factoid about him being able to take on Thanos with the power of his Yaka arrow, but he apparently, like, the Yaka arrow, it just has like the material it's made of is actually not that strong, and so in a sense, like, it shouldn't actually be able to kill Thanos. And then I think with reasoning from the MCU, from things that have happened in the MCU, for example, like when Thanos didn't have any of the Power Stones, and he was able to like react really quickly to some other projectiles that were thrown at him or something like that. Excuse me, that he. Oh, I think it's maybe an Endgame, because he in the Endgame version, he doesn't have the glove at all.
Right.
He doesn't have any of the stones, but he's able to like basically fight off all of the Avengers in all the extension, in all sorts of different ways. And so, I think because of that fact, because of his reaction, because of his skill and his prowess as like a fighter, that Yondu wouldn't actually be able to like his arrow wouldn't even like touch Thanos. Like Thanos would be too quick to get it or something like that. So I mean, yeah, in the MCU, I guess that could be the thing. I think in the comics, it's also like he doesn't have. He's one of like the few few people to really master using the Yaka arrow. Okay. But it's still not to the extent of like its full potential or something like that.
Oh.
So, yeah. So I don't know. I think maybe in the movie, I don't know, like if there's like any kind of anything to show like what level of strength he has of using it, because like for us, for all we can see is like he can cause so much destruction just from that one thing. But
yeah, it's funny how he doesn't use that power so much. I think it tells you a lot about Yondu. Is like earlier on when he was in trouble with the Ravagers and stuff like that. Even before, well, I guess he was caught off guard and the thing was shot off his head, so I guess he couldn't have used that arrow. But still, he just has a lot of power to him, and he doesn't use that power all that much. He's normally just trying to be a persuasive human being instead of an aggressive human being, which is really interesting to his character.
He doesn't like abuse what's given to him in a way.
Yeah. So then he kills Taserface and everybody on board, and it's just a fun scene.
Yeah.
Okay, so after that, we have got, is this the argument between Gamora and Quill? Oh, I'm sorry. At the very end, they escape from the ship with Sean Gunn. I don't remember his character's name. And they do their... Kraglin. And then they do their skipping, where they skip
700
around.
jumps.
Yeah, and it does the crazy cartoon stuff where everybody's eyes start bulging.
It's so funny. It's like watching somebody do like a Snapchat filter but live. And they're like moving the camera like around different parts of their face. But
it goes like over the top.
I think it's done so well though.
Yeah.
It's really funny. I think part of what makes it look really funny is because of like they don't all have human faces except for Kraglin, but they all have these weird kind of different features that really accentuate the odd distortions that are happening.
Yeah.
So like for example, Yondu's teeth, they're all kind of like weird, crooked, like they're sharp on one side but they're also like split apart. So when his face and his chin are just coming out just so much, it looks so funny. I love it.
I like how there's a good reference here when Quill and Gamora are in their kind of discussion argument point in the movie here. They start off dancing, and I really like how Quill says, and Drax thinks that you don't dance or whatever. And I love that moment because it does say earlier that Drax is talking to Quill and he says like, you are one who dances, Gamora is one who does not dance. Yeah. And he's like trying to say like, find a different girl that suits you better.
Yeah, you need to find somebody who's pathetic like you.
Yeah, exactly. And I love that. Even he references it here, like, and Drax thinks you don't dance. Like, there's more to this team dynamic, and like the ones that get it, and the ones that don't. And I love it. Like everyone has their place, and it's so good.
Yeah. Doesn't this scene kind of remind you of Anakin and Padme?
Yeah, for sure. There's a lot of weird Star Wars motifs that happen in Guardians of the Galaxy. But yeah, this balcony scene, it's very Anamin and Padme. Padme and Anamin.
Adme and Panakin.
Panakin. Every day I'm panicking. I like their scenes though, Gamora and Quill, like a lot, and I really enjoy their conversations a lot. I don't know, I really like their romance. It's one of the better ones out of the whole Marvel universe, considering the fact that she's one of the heroes as well, which makes it really fun.
Yeah. And it's not your typical romance, right? Because she's not a typical person who invokes the same kind of love that we would see from like people from Earth, right?
For sure.
But he is actually, it's kind of weird that he was only on Earth until when he was like 11 or like he was really young.
Yeah.
But then for some reason he's still able to contain, or he still retains a lot of his
Earthisms.
Earthisms when he's not surrounded by that. He's not around that at all.
Yeah.
I mean, the Ravagers, sure, maybe a little bit, but I guess it's enough. I don't know.
Yeah. I don't know. I think it would have made more sense if he was more like a teenager, like maybe 16 or so when he got taken up from the planet.
You mean in terms of like what his character is like now?
Yeah, to make more sense of why his character is the way he is now.
Yeah,
I think it would have made more sense if he was like 16 when he got taken from Earth.
Yeah.
I like this argument between Gamora and Quill. I think it's really, both characters they flipped from their earlier discussion, right? Where now Gamora doesn't trust Ego, And Quill is like he's totally flipped now. He totally trusts Ego, and he's now got everything he's ever wanted. But he does say that like
I found my family.
Exactly.
I thought you already did.
Yeah, and like I think Gamora's got a really good point there. Like she's probably recognized the whole breaking of the Guardians here and understands that the family dynamics are broken, and so because of that, she's trying to say like you're the one who helps us all get back together. And he's not there to do it at the moment. So I think that's what really she's wanting to say, but she also doesn't want to say it. So I think it's the breaking that happens there. After that, we get a really good moment where Gamora goes on her own. You can tell she regrets what she said to him. She sighs as if she wishes she didn't say what she said.
Yeah, which is weird because we don't often get to see her show that kind of emotion.
Exactly,
right? Like,
I know.
Usually,
I really
other
appreciate
than maybe
that.
like anger, but yeah, this is a good time where we can start getting a glimpse of it, and it's also nice that we get a glimpse of it just before leading into like a bigger emotional moment with her sister.
For sure.
Which has been something that is like a lifelong thing for her. So it makes more sense that we would get it out of her during this sequence than we would get it from Quill. From being with Quill, I mean.
Yeah. I find Nebula annoying, but I do like this scene where Nebula is trying to attack Gamora here because it's so over the top and so crazy that you start to realize halfway through that, oh, they're trying to tell me a message. And you're like, oh, I get it now. Like, it's like, oh, way over the top. But on purpose. On purpose to really show off the emotional side of it.
It is, yeah. I really like what they did with Nebula, like, steering that ship because, like just the way that the ship crashes into the cave,
I know,
hits these things, but it's still going. It's so relentless, and I'm like, whoa, that's like I don't see the ship as a ship. I see the ship as Nebula.
I know.
Like, I don't separate it, and it looks so well done. Then okay, this is this part I really don't like.
Oh, Gamora picks up the gun and starts
because it's for me, it's kind of like this is something I expect to see in a cartoon, but not in a live action thing. It's like way too non-live action. It's like way too comical.
Yeah.
She picks up this giant ship cannon and is yelling while firing it, walking towards the ship. It's just like, this is like, I know it's not a realistic movie like 100% of the time, but this is like 100% too unrealistic for me.
Yeah, I think there was almost a way to cut that to make it way better, where it showed Nebula like in the ship and she's struggling, and then it shows Gamora looking down the hole at Nebula and being like staring at her, and the two just staring at each other for a while before one of them finally makes a decision to help the other. I think that would have been a lot better than just like, okay, let's just shoot the ship a bunch more with like now also. I understand they're trying to say, okay, Gamora's trying to also take her anger out on Nebula, and that the two of them are fighting first instead of using words. But it's just like you said, it comes off too comical when Gamora starts to fight in as well. But yeah, I do like that the two of them talk it out a little bit here. They brush it off. We get through their fight scenes. We kind of understand a little bit more, like Gamora, she's trying to say like, I don't know, Nebula's trying to say like, in a way she's kind of trying to say like your dad's favorite or whatever, and then Gamora's like, you don't understand, like it's in a realistic way she's like, you don't understand, I'm not just his favorite, like I'm the one who's always expected to do things. And Nebula's like, you know, living in your shadow is really hard. And this is a funny thing for siblings because a lot of siblings understand this. You know, they totally know this argument that you'll have with your siblings where it's like, you're the favorite, no, you're the favorite kind of thing. It's a funny moment, even though it's a sci-fi film, they brought a relative moment into it, so I like that.
Yeah. Did you have that growing up?
Yeah, a little bit. My parents always joked around saying I was the favorite, and my brother always says I was the favorite, but to me, my brother was the troublemaker, so to me, he was the one with all the attention. So, it's funny how that happens, right? I mean, like...
Interesting.
You look like you're the perfect child or something like that, but then the other ones, since he's the troublemaker, he's the one who gets all the attention from the parents, so it's... You don't know what you're arguing for, I think, at that point.
Yeah, right. Okay.
Yeah.
A look into Mattbrush's life.
Ah, yes. But I think it's a pretty common thing with a lot of siblings. I think they go through that.
Okay.
So we get to the scene I was talking about. The sailors say Brandy. You know, she's a fine girl, Peter. What a good wife she'd be. But my love, my life and my lady is the sea. I like this because I liked it. I feel like this is me in some moments. Sometimes I'm over explaining a song lyric to like my fiance, and she just doesn't care at all, or she's falling asleep. And and here I am
asleep, but you're saying it anyway.
I'm like, you know, in this song when he says, I feel a lot like Kurt Russell in this moment.
Did you know?
Yeah. So I do like that scene because it's like, oh man, and I remember hearing that in the theaters, going like, oh, and I was building that motif already, like at that moment, being like, oh, there we go, okay, that's the theme, yeah, okay, yeah.
Yeah, there we go. Now they summed it up. Yeah.
Yeah. But I just like that little scene. I think it's good. Okay, so we've got that. I'm sorry, we don't normally watch the movie like this, and I think I'm getting much more distracted because of that. So,
So the audience knows this is the first time we're doing Disney Plus's group watch.
Yeah.
We decided we would test it out because we normally watch it separately, and so we're potentially on separate pages, but not that we're always watching the scene by scene and
exactly,
commenting on it. Because we have our own outlines kind of typed out. I've got all my notes, and I just kind of follow with with whatever I can. But since we already know that we watched it, we decided, well, let's just try group watch. So we're seeing the same things, and now we're pretty much just watching the movie all over again.
Yeah,
but it's fun.
What happens here is we get Peter's dad kind of telling Peter that he's got these powers and that. Like, he already knows he's got the power, sorry, but I mean, he tries to talk more the bigger purpose of life. He tries to tell people that there's a lot more to just these powers and that he can use them when he's a Celestial to create something a lot bigger and better. And this is where Peter gets all excited, like, oh, I'm going to create some really fun stuff. You know, he doesn't totally know exactly where it's going.
Create some really freaky stuff.
I love that. And
something about Heather Locklear.
Yeah, Pac-Man.
Like Pac-Man statue and Heather Locklear.
Yeah. And again, that kind of references to when the time period that Peter's from. And that's I'm a little out of order in my Act 2, but I actually ended about there before I move forward because I feel like we're about to move into Act 3 territory next.
So my Act 3, I was confused where to put it because I felt like it was almost like in the trend. It was kind of in between scenes. Like I actually started my Act 3 shortly after Ego tells Peter about like what he actually did to his mom.
Yeah, see, okay, we'll get into that. I feel like
why don't we just start, like, if your Act 3 is already before that, so why don't we start off with yours then?
Okay, mine's about right here, the scene I'm at. So so I think we should get to about here because that's where everything changes.
Wait, I see you clicking right here.
Yeah, this scene here, because this is where it's about to change into what I think is the Act 3, because it's now going to be Ego as the villain. So.
Okay, wait, but didn't we already do that one?
Did we do this one?
Yeah, because we talked about. I'm highlighting Nebula.
Okay,
Gamora,
yeah, here we go.
Right, because she already.
I'm sorry, I got the wrong.
Yep.
Yep. Oh, this is where I think we're starting Act 3. So sorry.
So okay.
Give me a few seconds.
I'm watching you edit live and trying to figure out what we are doing. Oh, I see.
Yeah. So we already did that. Like I said, it's a little bit out of order, and then I think that's where it starts, which is where we are in the video.
I think. Okay, cool. All right.
Yeah, we're on track. We got this.
Sweet.
Okay, so Act 3. I'm gonna call this "That's My Dad."
I'm calling it Ego Unhinged.
Ooh, well done.
Little scumbar meme there.
Okay, cool. We got a scene here. I will play Yondu, and you will play Peter Quill.
Oh, so sweet. You look like Mary Poppins.
Is he cool?
Hell yeah, he's cool.
I'm Mary Poppins, y'all.
And that's all we need to know about them.
That's all we need to know. And that's all you need to know. Okay, moving into Act 3 here.
I don't think I know. Is that an actual song, or were you just singing that?
Yeah, it is. It's something in Les Mis, but I don't remember what.
Oh, okay.
I'm here, and that's all you need to know. I don't remember what song it is, though. It doesn't matter. Anyways, moving into Act 3. This is like our unhinged kind of Marvel movie marathon, but whatever.
Yep.
So Gamora and Nebula are discovering the bones and remains of a civilization on planet Ego. So what could be happening if they discover these bones? That can't be good.
Somebody's been hungry.
Yeah. So this is why this didn't make any sense to me. So you're right. It is kind of in the middle of a bunch of things going on. So Ego is telling Quill about all of these kind of his bigger purpose in life, like what his major goal is, and why he needs two Celestials to be able to make this work. And while he's telling him this, we have the other characters discovering this. We have Mantis waking up Drax, telling Drax that she has a secret she needs to tell him about Ego. We have Gamora and Nebula discovering that there are these bones on this planet. Why would these bones be here? Well, as that's happening, we now have Kurt Russell explaining that life was kind of meaningless, and he wanted life to be a little bit better, so he wanted to make it better. But in order to do that, he needed another celestial being, so he had to create a child. We also, while we're about to get into it, we should also reference that Stakar made Yondu disband from the Ravengers, and the reason why was because he was trafficking children. So, which is a pretty good reason to make sure that somebody's not part of your crew. That's something they didn't do. That was against their pirate code for whatever reason, that they don't traffic children. Anyways, at this moment, we now have Ego kind of showing Quill the universe as it could be. And Quill gets totally entranced by this. It's crazy. Who knows what he's actually seeing, but he gets totally entranced by this power.
Yeah. I think he sees, entranced by the power, or entranced by the potential of what things could be, I guess, and like how beautiful it could look. Right. I think. Yeah.
So when Yondu was with Rocket, he then explained that he actually was... He realized after a while that he was trafficking children to Ego, but he didn't like who Ego was, so he kept Quill from Ego. For some reason, he cared enough about Quill to keep him from Ego, and he decided to kind of raise Quill a little bit as his own. I mean, he says it's for thieving and whatnot, but he just kind of at that moment is saying he kind of wants Quill away from Ego.
I think he found out that Ego was eating them, like eating his kids, or something.
Possibly, yeah.
Or like killing them in some way. I think he knew that.
Yeah. And it's in this moment where we kind of discover that, Ego then tells Quill that, he got Yondu to collect children for him and deliver these children to him. So we're starting to understand a little bit more of the dynamics now. Why was Yondu there to pick up Quill on Earth? You know, why all this kind of stuff? And it makes a bit more sense now. And then Ego tells Quill that the whole master plan at the end, and explains that's why he had to put the cancer into Quill's mom, was that's what breaks Quill from the trance, which is really, really cool. I like that moment. Because you see it as the audience, you can see his eyes change, and you're like, okay,
he's back to normal.
But it's Ego doesn't see, because his ego is getting the better of him, really.
Aha!
Yeah.
Zing. Yeah, and then I was gonna say, just I think maybe just before this, we get the Stanley cameo. I think it happens as Yondu and Rocket are still going through their jumps, and then they pass by Stanley, I think, talking to the Watchers.
Yeah.
I think, right? Yeah. I feel like when he's telling them, like, oh, I was a mailman in that one. Yeah. So I think, was he talking about his previous cameo?
Yeah, I'm assuming he's talking about his cameos. It's just like completely breaking the fourth wall, I think, at that moment.
Yeah. Okay.
So he's actually playing Stan Lee in that one.
Playing Stan Lee on space.
Yeah.
Or in space, talking to the Watchers.
Stan Lee on space. So once Ego reveals his master plan, this is also the moment when Gamora and Nebula have met up with Drax and MAntis, and they're all kind of realizing they've got to go and do this thing. But right when Ego...
We gotta do a thing.
I'm sorry?
We gotta do a thing.
We gotta do this thing, Peter. It's just gonna be you and me, and we're gonna do the thing. Right when he reveals the mother thing, I'm just trying to find it. Blah, 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 blah. Coming up, there it is. Peter starts his immediate reaction is just to blast away his dad. So I love how all the feelings, everything that's happened in this whole movie just goes away in 1 second as soon as he says that he killed his mom.
So quickly too.
Oh yeah.
It's not just like he turns back into his eyes go back, but it's also like just overall his like brain and his heart, like everything just turns into like, okay, this guy is not a good guy. Yeah. I don't care what he is. Shoot him dead.
He's pretty much Peter right from the very beginning of the movie immediately. Then we get our first David Hasselhoff in person.
Yeah.
But this is a really intense torture here. Ego just instantly hits him with an electronic tentacle and then just says like, okay, you're going to be a battery then on this planet for like 1,000 years and then we'll talk. And it's like, holy smokes, that's brutal. Like, to Ego, that's like a blink of an eye, so it doesn't really matter.
Yeah. That's not a good father figure.
Meanwhile, we've got the rest of the Guardians all trying to work together to get here, and we get an awesome moment where...
he plays the song one more time, and then... Did he crush it or something?
Ego crushes the Walkman or whatever, but he takes the power that he's getting from Peter, and he starts erupting like these flowers all across space.
His buds.
His buds, and he's spreading his seed everywhere. We get that awesome moment, when... Yondu and Rocket then just crash into him with the ship.
It's great. I like the visual of it too, because it's just like
plop.
This one gigantic thing. Yeah, plop, and it doesn't even like. It's not that it's one of those things where it like bounces. You know, it's still trying to like slow down. and like stop its speed, but it lands and stops, and like that's it, and then and then
It almost seems like you dropped cake on the floor or something. It's just like
yeah, exactly. It's that kind of thing. I like that imagery.
Yeah.
I like it. It's fun.
Me too. The regrouping of the whole Guardians here is really great. This last 40 minutes of the film, the Guardians are back as they were from the first movie. So this is really where we get to see them back as Guardians again. And I just really enjoy it. They all kind of click really quickly here. And it's just really nice to see. Groot greeting them as the door opens. You got Gamora and Quill kind of having a nice little reconcile really quickly when he's like, "I'm sorry, you were right. That's my dad and he's evil," kind of thing. They just move forward really fast, and I love it. So from here, the whole rest of the movie becomes a big race to get to the core of the planet to destroy Ego. It's the only way that they can get him. So as we mentioned before, Ego's core is kind of like a heart/brain, and they decide that if Rocket can make a big enough bomb, maybe they can go and destroy it. Really touching moment comes up here where Peter goes up into the co-pilot seat, and you've got Yondu in the pilot seat and Peter in the co-pilot seat, and then they have this little father-son kind of moment real quick. He's like, "So, what'd you find out?" kind of thing. What's the situation? You met your dad kind of thing. And it's just so funny. It reminds me of, the stepdad who's raised the son forever, and then, the son just met his real dad, but he's kind of disappointed in the stepdad having that conversation. It's I don't know, it's really good.
I definitely see, that father-son kind of convo going on. Because, when he asks him, what he made or something, or I can't remember how it comes up. But
what'd you make? He's like, "I made a ball."
That's all?
Yeah, that's it? You made a ball?
Yeah, exactly. Think bigger kind of thing, right? It's it's like that stereotypical father trying to tell his kid, you can do so much more, think bigger kind of thing, right? So, I mean, you could probably get that kind of situation with, him and anybody else. Maybe, I feel like Rocket would probably still say the same thing. That's all you made is a ball?
Yeah.
I could have made something. I could have made a Groot or I don't know. But I think it's just the fact that, we have this... they're reunited, right? First of all, he didn't even know that Yondu was going to be there. He just happens to show up.
Yeah.
But then they're instantly, just from that, they're instantly back into this kind of conversation. They can have this conversation and they can get by the fact that, oh, we weren't together this whole time. Now that we are, things are normal. This is how we are together, right?
Yeah, there's actually, it's a whole death-defying moment where they're trying to drill into the core here, and they're dodging things left and right, and they're still having, a basic conversation at the same time. Exactly. But I really do like that. That's good. Yeah. And it really, these moments is where Yondu's, shining. He's really shining because he's becoming, such an awesome character in these last moments of the film. So they get to the core of the planet, and at that moment, we also have a break-in of the Sovereign. They come in and they are all there
again.
Stupid golden ships.
Yeah, and now this time the Priestess is actually playing.
Yeah, she's playing a little bit of Galaga with all the rest of them. It seems like Galaga are like Space Invaders or something.
Yeah, it's totally like Space Invaders.
Bleep, bleep, bleep.
They should have done kind of like one of those the movie scene just transitions into the 16-bit thing.
Oh yeah,
and then it's
I could see
we're
that.
just
Almost,
watching them all get shot out of the sky, and anyway.
Yeah. So they go down into Ego as well, and they start the battle there, and you get these really... I don't know what those ball things are that Rocket's dealing with, but he's got these little balls that he controls around the ship that shoot out the lasers.
Yeah.
It's so awesome, because they have to use it to steer their ship to get to the core, but they also use it as a self-defense, and it just becomes really fun to watch. I really like it.
They're weird propelling pulse laser ball gravity things. I don't know, or magnet things. They're really cool. It's a weird kind of future tech that I feel like Tony Stark would really enjoy having, and being able to really go off with it. But yeah, they seem very multi-purpose. They're pretty cool.
We get a really good line from Yondu where he says he pretty much says you're thinking too much. He's like, I don't steer the ship by thinking. And so he's pretty much trying to say
he's talking about when he's controlling his arrow.
I'm sorry, it's the arrow. You're right. I don't use the arrow to that, but he's trying to say use your heart, not your head. And it's such a great thing because it's okay. So now they're giving Yondu a great message to deliver, to
lesson.
Him. Yeah, exactly. He's teaching him while they're in the middle of danger, and it's just fun moments like that. I love it. So they try to,
and he's saying that in the midst of him just about to potentially die, right? He's getting smothered. He doesn't know what's going to happen to him. So in his last potential moments, he's just thinking about how to help Quill. Maybe not necessarily save everybody else, but at least save himself.
Right.
Yeah.
The problem that arises when they get to the core is that they can't drill further into this heart brain thing. So they realize that they're going to need Groot, essentially, which is awesome because Groot hasn't been able to do too much in this movie. So they decide they need Groot to be able to get inside the core because he's tiny enough. He's good for thieving. so he can go in and plant the bomb.
Oh yeah, nice.
There's a really is this the moment? It's a little bit later on. So yeah, they have to go and they launch Groot inside of the giant heart thing to go and see if that Rocket kind of conjures up like a big death bomb kind of thing and creates his bomb so that they can go and destroy it. Oh yeah, he uses the batteries that he stole from earlier on in the film, which is great.
Yeah.
So
yeah, puts them together.
At least they actually work for something that actually helps everybody in the end.
He needed to have those batteries after all. Harbulary batteries.
Harbulary batteries. No. We also have Quill and Rocket working together to get these bombs into the thing, which is actually it's a pretty funny moment because they still argue, but they argue in a way where they're still working as a team, which is really good. I love it. He's like, I need some duct tape or whatever to put tape over the button.
So he goes around and this is one of those like, okay, for sure this is a Guardians moment because in the middle of this giant like chaotic scene, he's asking each and every one like individual characters like, hey, do you got tape?
Yeah.
I said tape.
Yeah, he's
and
like,
then
Gamora.
they have like their back and forth, and then
tape?
what is it that Drax says? Yeah, Scotch tape would work.
Yeah.
Well, then why did you ask me if I had Scotch tape if you don't even have any tape at all? Like it's these are the kind of moments that like I think we could have used a few more of them, like or else the less is more. Like we're fine with what we got, but these are that like now that they're back together, we can finally have these true Guardian moments like on screen, and it's nice to have that, especially in a moment like this where it's pretty much like what we were doing in the very beginning of the movie. It's like chaos, but we see what the characters are like. They're shining as what they are, and now back again into this end of the movie, big chaos, characters are shining exactly how they should be and how they work together, and it's really fun. It's so I guess endearing might be the word, but I just really enjoy being able to see those kind of interactions in the midst of what should be something so serious, because that's kind of what make those characters the Guardians of the Galaxy.
And the third movie, I think, had 3 of those moments. It had a good Act 1 moment, a good Act 2 moment, and a good Act 3 moment for all those like awesome fight scenes that became fun to watch. But this movie, it does kind of just do it at the beginning end to end. In the middle, flounders a little bit, trying to find itself. But it's
I guess they couldn't because they split up, but then it's kind of difficult.
Yeah, it's just pickpocketing it though, or
nitpicking,
picnicking. It's just it's got some great moments, so I can't really disparage it too much because there's a lot of scenes I really do like and enjoy. This whole scene, Rocket's trying to get Groot not to press the button. It's funny, but I think we saw it in the theaters or the trailers too much, so it kind of ruined the joke to me because
was that in the trailer?
It was in the trailer, and I'd already seen the joke, so it wasn't as funny when I saw it the second time.
Right.
So anyways, you get the tape, they go through the whole tape scene. That was really funny in the theater, actually, because the surround sound going everywhere. Oh, whoops, I went way too far in. And the surround sound going everywhere in the theater when Peter's asking everybody, like, where they have the tape. That was just, I really liked that. That was funny.
Yeah, it's well done.
It reminded me of, like, a theme park ride in Disneyland or something like that, where they're doing, like, those 4D things.
That's what I was gonna say. So at Disneyland right now, I haven't been to Disney World, but Disneyland, like, they revamped a lot of their rides. So the Tower of Terror is now the Guardians of the Galaxy ride, or the Volume 2 ride though, and it's basically that whole opening scene from this movie.
Yeah, where they're fighting that monster, and they show you different angles of it or something like that as you're going like up and down. From
Exactly. Yeah. So it's almost like you're just watching them fight, but then they're trying to like make sure that you get out safely or whatever, right? But I was thinking, so this a little bit earlier. When was it? Oh, it's just before they start drilling into the core. I feel like as soon as Quill and Yondu are piloting the ship, and then you get that kind of third-person view where we're as the audience, we're looking out in the same direction as they are in the ship. Like we're like sitting behind them, and I feel like this could have been like a good ride because they're trying to go through, and then they start like falling really far down, and then there's a lot happening.
I get a few of those moments in this movie.
Too. I think that's why this movie, like you were saying, like you had a different movie going experience from watching it like at home or like wherever else, because this movie, I feel like it's a big screen movie because it's with the way that like the visuals, but also a lot of the colors, they're definitely very immersive style, like videography, like cinematography. I mean, they're meant for you to be enveloped in so many ways, like, and like how you said, like the sound of Quill going from left to right in all these other places asking for tape. It's not the kind of experience that you can fully grasp by watching it at home.
Right.
You have to be in like a big dark room, huge screen, loud sound, bright colors, and then you really, really get to feel the movie a lot more.
Right.
And
No, I agree. I think the colors, I just got a new TV too, so the colors I used to find really jarring, but on my new TV it actually looks really good. So I actually really enjoyed it. And I think that's
everybody is really colorful in this movie.
Yeah, I'm watching it right now on my monitor, and it seems totally different watching on the monitor than when I watched it earlier. There's a really quick scene that we kind of just watched really quickly there with Nebula when she kind of like powers herself into her wrist there.
Oh,
and then they use that to like shoot out all those beams. They have enough power to shoot out the beams with Yondu, and I really like that moment because it's them working together. These two characters that we don't see as often.
The two non-official Guardians of the Galaxy characters. Yeah.
And then we get the ship blowing up, and we get the scene that we did in the beginning there with the Mary Poppins. I remember that line killing. That was a good line, and like the whole theater laughed so hard at that.
Oh yeah, it's so good.
And then it's like a double whammy because the very next scene, this makes me laugh every single time when it does the Guardian shot, and all of them like doing their heroic Guardian shot.
Minus Groot is what I noticed.
Oh yeah,
it's the second Guardian shot minus Groot.
Yeah, but then when MAntis just gets hit so hard by a boulder, I remember laughing so hard, and then Drax just "MAntis, look out!" after the fact. Oh my god, the theater was laughing so hard. Like that was really, really funny to me.
Yeah, so I don't know, okay, I'm just thinking out loud now, but you know, sometimes you kind of need a little bit of something to prime you for something else that's going to come up to maybe make you feel a little bit more of it, right? So because I was actually getting kind of emotional when Quill and Yondu are kind of floating down, like they're descending, right? Like he looks up at him, and when he says like hell yeah, he's cool. Like he's not referring to Mary Poppins, he's referring to Yondu.
Exactly, and it's cool. He gives him that moment, right? Like he gives it to him. It's so good.
So he's looking at Yondu in a completely different way. He's looking at him like as this person who came to help them out of nowhere, like never asked for the help, but he came and he's there just doing what he can to help them get through it, right?
Yeah.
So anyway, we have these at least for me, like I have this emotion going on, and so like it's still continuing, and then as soon as Mantis gets hit, I think normally I wouldn't find it as funny, but because I have like these emotions rattling inside my body, as soon as I see that, it's like it flipped from like that like endearing kind of feeling over to like it's just
something so jarring that you're not expecting.
It's like what, but it's so funny because I'm already in that emotion.
You're right. The scene on its own probably isn't as effective, but the way they domino affect it to you is like is really good.
I think so. Yeah.
Now I don't actually really necessarily like these next couple scenes. They kind of do a bunch of different montages of like, okay, Groot's going up to the ship. You got Nebula and Gamora kind of traversing off on their own thing. And then everyone gets affected by Ego here. So Ego starts like kind of creating this weird like molten lava effect that starts taking over everybody. The only one I really find all that interesting is Yondu and Quill, but everyone else is kind of just there for the shock value, I think, of it.
Right.
And I don't know what it is, but I just find it like it's not a tease. It's like the opposite of a tease. It's almost like dragging. It's not dragging, but it's like, I don't know. I don't need to see it almost. I get what they're doing. They're trying to like make it so everyone is stuck until Quill can do his next thing. But I'm so invested in Quill and Yondu at this moment that I'm not necessarily caring about watching everybody else who's getting stuck.
Yeah, right. Like we've seen enough of what each of them can do in their own, like when they're in some sort of troubled spot and they can get out of it. But now we finally get to see Quill and Yondu. Especially, it seems like they have their backs against each other while fighting off the same. Working together, fighting off the same enemy, it's kind of a cool moment. It's still more so building on the whole like father, maybe not necessarily father-son, but just like tight relationship aspect.
No, I don't exactly, and I don't think I need to see everybody getting stuck from whatever Ego is doing, but I think you could make it just as effective by just making Yondu get stuck. So Yondu and Quill could be distracting Ego from noticing that the bomb is being planted. Then Ego grabs Yondu and is going to put him in a life or death situation. And that's what causes Quill to then use his powers to distract Ego then again. I think you could have done all that, and you wouldn't have needed to show the rest of the Guardians in these moments. It's not bad showing the Guardians. It's just a little bit pulling me out of the main focus of the battle, I guess. So, so anyways, so there's all that, and then we get Quill and his father having their major fight. Quill decides that he's going to have to do something, so he decides to start using his heart.
His light. His heart.
Using his heart instead of his head. And he fights back. And with the fight back, we've got... is it Never Break the Chain again? I think it is.
Oh, the song?
Yeah, I think the song comes back. And he goes, Never break the chain. But we get some great moments where it shows a flashback. I like that one. That's got to be my favorite
scenes
one.
that we haven't actually seen yet, right? But now we're seeing them now. Yeah,
the flashbacks that Peter sees are just hilarious. It's him with everybody else. It's him with his mom first that we see. They're lying in a field. It's the kid who plays Stanley from It, which is really fun, I think.
Oh, right. And then he's got the Walkman that he's listening to.
Oh, yeah, good point. This is with the Walkman. Then it shows Peter and Drax laughing in the next one, which I think is actually an outtake. It looks more like an outtake than anything. It's just the two of them laughing at something.
Yeah, maybe that's what they did, yeah.
And then you've got this one of Peter and Rocket flying in the sky. And it looks like when you do one of those music videos, like in the mall or something, and it's like a green screen behind you. It's so funny because it doesn't look like a real memory at all. And I don't even think it is.
Exactly. I'm on the same page as you. I don't think it's a real memory. I think it's him wishing it was, or like pretending like, oh, if I had a good memory,
this is what it would look like.
This is what it would be like. Yeah.
It's so funny. I love that one. Then the next one we get is Peter and Gamora, which is obviously it's a real memory from the first movie. That's one that we've already seen before, where she's listening to his music, and it's kind of the first time they had an intimate moment, which is really nice. She actually yells at him right after that moment. Then we get this great scene where it's really fast, but you see Yondu teaching young Peter how to shoot a blaster. And it's such a good moment because you realize that's his weapon of choice. That's something that he identifies like insanely with his character, and it's something that Yondu taught him. And I didn't catch it the first time I saw the movie. I really didn't notice that scene of what was going on. Second time I watched the movie, I was like, oh wow! Like they tell you so early on that Yondu is like the father figure, like
a very important figure.
I definitely
I
definitely thought it was more of a twist the first time I saw it, and the second time I saw it, I realized that they're telling you this the whole time in this movie. But
yeah, exactly. They're kind of just culminating the fact that like everybody that he's having a flashback with are the ones who are really important to him.
Yeah,
and Yondu is definitely one of them. Yeah,
definitely. So I like all those little flashback scenes, and that's what causes Quill to realize that his family is the people he's built that family with. It's not the family that is biological to him. So, good moment. He conjures up his power and decides to fight his father, the celestial being, and it goes, "Never break the chain!" Just like breaks into the song. Good music in this movie. It always is. Yeah. I mean, I'm pretty sure it was one of those movies where the soundtrack was like huge. Wasn't Guardians 2, Volume 2, like one of the most played soundtracks on Spotify or something like that for all of 2017?
Oh, was it actually?
I'm pretty sure, yeah.
I can see that happening, yeah.
And then all the characters break out of their gobbledygook that Ego has done, and they're able to plant the bomb now on the heart and continue going on. This then causes Ego to then notice what's happening, and he wants Peter to stop this because he doesn't really have enough time to stop it. You've also got Rocket and Yondu having kind of their final moments while Rocket's passing off Yondu one of the rings and the flying jetpack things to try to get him off the planet, but he's only got one of each. Yondu says he needs this. He wants to be able to have this last final moment where he can give this to Quill, which is really endearing, but Rocket understands it too. It's just good.
Yeah, and I think it's... So what does he say? He's never done right by him. He wants to, finally do something that he can actually... Something that he can say he did right for once in his life. And so, it's a really nice moment. It's kind of like... it's a moment for both of them, really, because like for Rocket, like knowing that they have this mirror image of each other. Like for Rocket, it's kind of like him seeing like, oh yeah, like this is, like he's kind of like doing what he needs to before he can let go, kind of thing.
Rocket has a similar moment in the first movie where he's sorry, I just got Peter turning into Pac-Man here. But Rocket has a similar moment in the first movie where he's talking to Saul, and Saul then eventually dies. And Rocket kind of realizes that there's like that humanity or something. Like he actually got a friendship with the police, kind of the police force of the Nova Corps. Yeah. And then Saul dies, and Rocket feels that insane responsibility for him.
Right.
Well, it's a similar moment than when he's got this responsibility of Yondu there, and he understands now so much more of the gravity of the situation, and it's just really big. I love it.
Yeah,
good
for
moment.
Sure.
So Peter and his father are then fighting. They go off to the battle. Peter turns into Pac-Man while his father turns into a giant version of his father.
Yeah.
And they just battle each other a whole bunch. But again, this is where his father starts realizing that the planet's about to blow up, and he's pleading with Peter, like, please, you have to stop it. And Peter's pretty much just like, no, I'm not going to stop it. And when he says it's going to kill you too, like, he realizes in that moment that Peter's like, doesn't care. Like,
yeah, for sure. Yeah. It's kind of like this whole scene is like just one big giant sacrificial, maybe not like redemption thing all around, but it's like that last chance kind of feeling that you're getting all around. And then it's also supported by all the rest of the Guardians that are on the ship, like Quill Gamora, Drax, and they're just like screaming at Rocket, like, where's Quill, where's Quill? and you can tell like, there's actually like a lot of emotion for them. It's not just the usual he's not here, okay, well, let's go get him, but it's like a helplessness kind of.
Exactly.
Like it's a different kind of emotion that they're feeling right now, because they, I guess from where they stand, it's like, well, it's too late, like what can we do but cry about it kind of thing, right? So not cry about it, but they're pretty helpless.
And then as Peter's staring off into the abyss of the flames, then he gets saved by his pal Yondu. This line hit me hard the second time in theaters watching this movie, because I knew it was coming. But it hit me a little bit the first time watching it, but it was just so shocking that I didn't know. And it was just like, whoa, out of nowhere. When he says, he may have been your father, boy, but he wasn't your daddy. It's like, oh my god. He just says it in that Yondu fashion that's perfect. It's so good.
Every time I see that, it hits me more.
I know, it's insane.
And the way that Quill looks at him too.
Yeah.
I thought, man, Chris Pratt really does a good job with his emotions in this. Oh, yeah. I think it's like in this whole last scene too, like it's so looking at Yondu, but then also just as he's watching Yondu, like as he's freezing, and he can't, like, he's trying to rip off his thing so he can put it onto Yondu, and now he's in this helpless kind of situation, so he's now feeling it. So all the Guardians in some way have felt their own helplessness,
for sure,
but for a different person. And then, but this is okay. So I wanted to make this comment that this is the second time he's had to pretty much watch a parental figure of his die in front of him.
Yeah.
Right. So first was his mom, and now second is, like, well, I mean, I guess sure we can say Ego, like his actual father.
Oh yeah.
So I'm watching him die.
But he felt no emotion when he just
But there's exactly the connection he feels with Ego is like pales like way in comparison to like having to watch Yondu die. And so when he's saying like no, like, oh man, the way he builds up with that emotion too, it's so well done. It just really hits me.
Yeah.
Man. Oh.
No, I agree. It's a really, really well done scene. They stay on it long enough for it to really hit hard, and then they just cut away. Yeah. And I really like that scene. It's just good. I can't say much more about it. It's just a great scene. A good job. I applaud them. It's what makes this movie a good movie to me. There's just so many things about this movie I don't like, but it's this whole Yondu thing that makes it so good at the same time. So, yeah. I don't know. Some part of me wants to like re-edit it. But anyways, then we get our full like ending finale. Star-Lord does his really nice speech about how his dad pretty much was David Hasselhoff the whole time. He didn't have a kit, or he didn't have a talking car, but he did have like a flying spaceship or whatever it was. Like,
yes, right, yeah. How did he say it? Oh, he didn't have the voice of David Hasselhoff, but he had the whistle of one.
Oh, true. Yeah. It's really well done. Like, it's not the comparison you were expecting at all. Especially when Kurt Russell's in this movie, you expect something like Kurt Russell to be compared to it.
Sure, yeah.
And that's the whole point. But no, it's actually Yondu, the crazy like guy that you never really expected to then actually be the one that he sees as his David Hasselhoff. And it's just really well done. And then he sees his family, and you understand that they all see each other as family in this moment. Like, I think after this movie, you realize nothing can break them apart as family. They are very, very close knit.
Yeah, and like they don't have to be blood. They're tight knit because of what they've been through together and what they have come to grow between all of them. Yeah.
And to make it even more emotional, you get a few more scenes. You get Nebula and Gamora having their moments where, it kind of bleeds into a little bit of Infinity War here. Yeah, they're pretty much planning that as sisters they can work together and destroy Thanos. And yeah, it's a good moment. I think that it shows off where we're going with Infinity War, and it shows that they're stronger. Like I said, they're stronger together. But then you get a really good moment at the end here where Rocket was the one who took initiative and decided to call the other Ravagers to see if they would come. Yeah, and then they did. They show up. All the Ravagers show up and start having a Ravager funeral. Is that what it's called?
A Ravager funeral. Yeah, that's right.
It's right when Peter plays like the most sad song in the world, Father and Son, and it just like goes off into like the saddest song ever, where it's like you realize this is just a family movie and it's so sad. And like all the other Ravagers show up, they start doing fireworks in the sky and everything. Very similar to if pirates were on an ocean and they shot fireworks off of their ships and whatnot.
Right.
And it's just it's a good endearing moment. Again, like Stallone's barely in this movie, but when you see Stallone there and his crew and like they're like they're happy and proud to be a part of Yondu. It's like, oh man, like it's just good. I like it.
Yeah, what's the line? He didn't let us down after all, Captain. So I wasn't actually sure. Did they mean that like he didn't let them down because like he helped destroy Ego, or he didn't let them down because they found out afterwards that the reason why he did it was because of Ego?
I'm not entirely sure, but I like it nonetheless. I don't know why.
Yeah.
Like I'm assuming Rocket then told him everything and all of his motivations behind it. But
right? Yeah,
it's just good. I like it. I like how Rocket's like talking about him too, and he's like talking about Yondu, like they all came back, even though he was a mean guy or whatever. Then he realized that Rocket's talking about himself.
About himself, exactly.
And then when Peter notices that, it's just a great, again, Chris Pratt acting really well, but he just goes like, of course they did. Like the way he does it, you're just like, there's so many times when Peter in this movie knows exactly what everyone's thinking, but says something else instead to make them feel better instead of like the obvious Drax line. You know, he's almost the opposite. He says like. He says like what he's processing in his head, but he says a different line to make the person feel better. Meanwhile, Drax is just saying what he's processing. Like, so
that's true.
It's really funny seeing that Peter does it so much in this movie, and so does Gamora for that matter. But it's just really good.
Yeah, it is really good.
Anyways, that's pretty much the end of the movie, but it's just a good movie. I really like this ending. It makes me feel good.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
I think. Yeah, like what we get from the ending is definitely not what I expected we would get based on how the beginning went and how, I think how like the direction the movie was going and, and like I said, I like watching it now. I like it so much more, and it could be because I understand it more. Like sometimes it takes me a couple times to watch the movie to really get what's happening because I'll miss dialogue or I'll miss some visuals and sometimes you miss those little things that actually make a big difference. So yeah, like the first time around watching it, I didn't really get the whole like father-son thing with Yondu until pretty much the very end.
Yeah.
But then like watching it the second and third time around, like I can see it like pretty much from the beginning.
Exactly. Yeah.
And it's not always because of dialogue between the two of them. It's like dialogue, like when Yondu is telling Rocket like what he like the reason why he kept Peter was because the whole like he was skinny, good for thieving, which is like an exact copy of a line that Quill had said earlier.
Exactly.
Which like it's there to make you realize like, oh, it's a line. It's not actually like there's something more to it than like, why is that a line? Why are they both saying it verbatim? Right?
Yeah.
So so I've definitely come to enjoy this movie so much more than I did before, which I'm glad about.
Yeah.
And yeah, there's some things I was gonna mention. Yeah, so we get like a few post-credit scenes.
Yeah, there's like 4 of them. It's a lot.
Yeah, and they're all like little snippets, right?
Yeah.
So first one is Kraglin practicing the Yaka arrow.
Yeah.
Trying to get it to work and accidentally stabs Drax and runs away.
Yeah.
And then the next one is Stakar. So he like reunites with, I guess his old team.
Yeah, it seems like that. And there's also a few voice actors I think in here that are like actually bigger people.
Oh, are they?
Yeah, I could be wrong, but I feel like Miley Cyrus is one of these people. I think she plays the robotic head thing.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
Weirdly enough. And then some, like the woman actress there, the Asian one, I don't know who she is, but I think she's a little bit popular.
Yeah, she's well known, and I can't remember her name, but she was in
The Matrix or something?
Of recent movies, she might have been in The Matrix.
Oh, I could be wrong.
Can't remember. But in recent movies, she was in Crazy Rich Asians.
Oh, okay.
Prior to that, she was in like Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon.
Oh, that was it. Yeah, I saw her in a Stuntman
yeah.
kind of video I was watching. So yeah.
Okay. I was reading briefly, so I think she, like in the comics, she's married to Stakar. Like they have the same last name.
Oh, okay.
So unless they're siblings, I don't know. But that last one kind of intrigues me because it seems like that little red alien guy has the same like Doctor Strange powers.
Oh, good point. Yep.
So I'm curious to know what's going on there.
Yeah, I don't know if we're gonna see these people in Guardians 3, but we definitely might. I know. I mean, Stallone's still kicking it when it comes to movies, so we can definitely see him come back for Guardians 3.
It's definitely possible. Like I feel like each of these scenes almost seems like they could be teasing for something else that comes later because we get that priestess, like the priestess Ayesha scene where she builds some sort of weird birthing pod called Adam. And I
His name is Adam.
I feel like that's meant to be like
the plot to Guardians 3.
Plot for something like they're definitely going to use that again.
Yeah.
And it must be something drawn from the comics.
Yeah, it's definitely more to that Adam character, the Adam the Warlock or whatever it is. He's apparently like a huge character that could technically be even like the next Infinity War like villain. So it's very possible that it's going to lead to something bigger.
Oh, what? She makes Adam Warlock. Oh, that's interesting.
Oh, I don't know Adam
Is
Warlock
that-
at all from the comics. If you know who that is, then awesome. But that's what she's referencing, apparently.
Oh, that's so. Oh, okay. Adam Warlock is pretty much, like, he's like the first one to sort of defeat Thanos because he's powered by one of the. I think he's able to power one of the stones. Oh, jeez, I can't remember now, but yeah, he's a very pivotal character in defeating Thanos.
Oh.
Like the first time around that they all fight him.
Okay, well, we'll probably know more about that as the Marvel movies continue on.
I guess so. Yeah.
We then move into the last scene of Peter talking to Groot, teenage Groot.
Second last, actually. There's one more after this.
Is it?
But...
Oh my god.
But
it's like five of them then. Oh, you're right. There is one more after this. Yeah. So Peter talks to Groot, and Groot's playing his little machine.
His angsty teen Groot.
Angsty teen Groot. Yeah, and it looks like Peter can understand him too.
Yeah, it seems like he can. Yeah. And then the last one is Stanley still talking to the Watchers, and they're getting bored, so they walk away.
Right. And he goes, "Here, you're my ride."
Yeah. I forgot to mention. I wanted to mention this earlier because it's another thing that I find to be one of those parental pass-offs with Quill, and it's that Kraglin gives Quill a Zune.
Oh,
like
right.
3-player from Yondu, and I feel like that's supposed to be like the next. So like in the previous movies or the end of the first one, he got like a new Walkman, new Walkman, which is from his mom, so his parental figure, and now in the end of this movie, he gets the next MP3 player, which is from his quote unquote dad, right?
Yeah,
so it's like
that's a good point.
both parental figures by the end of the movie have found some way to contribute to continue his passion for like music, like his earthly loves, right? So, and it's nice that Yondu, it's something that he found from Earth. It's not like he like went around the universe trying to find something, like specifically something from Earth, and he thought of giving it to Quill.
Right.
So there's obviously some sort of deeper connection that he has always had and has known for the kid. So for Quill, I mean. So,
right.
Yeah.
Well, now that we've watched the entire movie and talked about it this time, I don't know why we took so much longer with Guardians, but I think watching the movie alongside it made us like really drag out a lot of those scenes. But that's okay.
Probably.
It was a bit of a different formula. I hope you guys enjoyed that.
It's like semi live commentary.
Yeah, exactly. Almost more of a commentary to the movie, but that's okay.
Yeah.
Anyways, let's move on to our questions we like to ask at the end of the film here. First off, I just want to say with this movie, yes, I think it's good, not great. I do think that the first one is better, but this one has some great emotional scenes that without them, I wouldn't understand the Guardians as well as I do now. So I really appreciate this movie, but I don't think it hits as hard as the first movie did. Now, all that being said, Anth0z, what did you think of the film?
I really enjoyed it. I would watch it again.
Good. Okay.
How about you?
What was your least favorite character in this film?
Okay, so can we go with, like, are we supposed to go with main characters only, or with, like, any
Whatever
character
you want.
from the
Anything
movie?
you want to say.
I mean, because otherwise I would just say the Priestess.
Oh, yeah.
It would
Aisha,
probably be a toss-up between Priestess and Taserface, actually.
Yeah.
But,
I agree with you. Actually, I'd say Aisha, too. I forgot all about that, but yeah, she is probably the worst. I think Taserface is bad, but not as bad as Aisha, so, yeah.
Yeah.
You suck, Zolak.
I think, what is his name? Oh, Xylac.
Xylac.
Typical.
So what was your best character, then? Your favorite character?
I have a feeling like you're gonna say Yondu, so I will go. Oh man, should I go with Star-Lord? I might go with Quill.
Quill.
Yeah, I guess I'll go with Quill. I mean, I want to go with. Okay, it's a big toss between Yondu and Quill, but I'll go Quill.
Okay. Well, you're right. I obviously I think Yondu is the best character in this movie. I think he's like deserves all the cred for this movie. But obviously he isn't as good without Quill, though. I mean, with Chris Pratt in his acting, that's what also helps make Yondu as good as he is. So.
Yeah. Well, I think that goes for all the characters, right? Like Rocket needs somebody, so he needed Yondu to have those moments, right? And Yondu needs Quill. They kind of need each other, right? So this, like how we talked about how when they break apart and then they all have this other character, like they're broken up in kind of couples. I think they need that in order to actually to get those emotions out. You can't just be alone doing it. You need somebody to like riff off of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree. I also think this podcast has been long enough, so that's all the questions we're going to ask on this one, and let's just
Sure.
move on. So I just want to say now, thank you guys so much for listening to this long podcast, and be sure to catch us on our
long
next
cast.
Marvel Marathon episode, where we're going to be talking about Spider-Man Homecoming. Really interesting. So
He's coming home.
I'm coming home. I'm coming.
What? Oh, okay. Right, I'm coming out.
Yeah, but it's coming home.
But he's coming home.
There's so many other songs that have home in the title, but I chose that one instead that doesn't have home in the title, apparently.
Let me go home. That's one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, a lot of home songs.
Yep. Home.
Home
Where we
on
go
the range.
home. Home is where I'm coming down.
Home is home star suit or something like that. It's from Friends. It's that scene where like I can't remember. It's like one of it's Phoebe's like ex partner, like guitar.
Oh
singing
yeah,
partner.
yeah.
And then home is never far away. Home is home star suit.
Yeah.
Something, yeah.
I forgot about that. Yeah.
All right.
Okay. Anyways, thank you so much for listening
Cool.
to us.
All right. Thanks everybody.